Backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Tried to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on 365 Sports as we lead you through today, and we will all be headed up to the Dallas and Fort Worth area tomorrow for Big 12 Media Days, both on Tuesday and Wednesday inside the Star, Cowboys headquarters in Frisco. So looking forward to that, and we've got a lineup already tomorrow morning. By the time we get to mid-morning, we will have coaches, etc., some locked in. Looking forward to it. Can't wait for that to happen. So that's on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. One note, Phil Steele from the Unbelievable College Magazine will join us on Thursday's show. So I want to start with this. The flooding down in the Kerrville area, obviously just an horrific story. One of the camps that was washed away and lost lives, many others too, Camp Mystic. I didn't realize this until I started reading more about it, but one of the camps in that area is Camp La Junta. And when I was in San Antonio, when we were there for a couple of years before moving to Japan, I used to go to Camp La Junta for summer, shoot skeet and go fishing and just kind of hanging out and enjoying a summer for a few days. And so our thoughts and prayers to everybody who's been affected and so many people that just the devastation from what happened along the Guadalupe River over the weekend and early on Friday, July the 4th. One note, I drove into San Antonio Saturday evening, and on that tollway that's west of Austin, I crossed the Guadalupe River. Of course, different scenario because it's raised up the tollway. The bridge is huge. But you could tell even then, even after a few hours, that the Guadalupe was swollen badly. And so, again, thoughts and prayers as recovery continues in that particular area.
My Nana was born and raised in Kerrville, Texas.
Kerrville, Tivy High School.
Yeah, so she I don't think there was Tivy High School back in 1936, but maybe. But yeah, she's from Kerrville. Like she's so Kerrville. She knows the HEB family. Like she knew them. Like if they walk down the street, she go, "Hi, Howard, how you doing?" She knew the HEB folks when they started. She was at that first grocery store, and I saw yesterday. And speaking of HEB, they actually mobilized quicker than like FEMA or the Red Cross or anybody, and got back down there to their home, and we're helping a lot of people out. It's a terrible tragedy. I hope we figure out ways to improve on the things that maybe could have been prevented. And you can't say anything to the families to make them feel better right now, but our heart breaks for all of you.
Yeah, it's a devastating story. It's an immense tragedy, and not one that anybody obviously foresaw coming, and just a horrific thing to read about, much less experience. I can't even imagine or begin to imagine what's going through the minds and the hearts of a lot of families and friends out there who have had their lives changed immeasurably over the last couple of days. And I was thinking about it driving in here because it's pouring down rain again.
Yep,
I mean, it's it's just monsoon rain here in Texas the last couple of weeks. And really, this has been a pretty wet summer overall. And it just keeps coming. But, that crossed my mind just driving in because there was a little bit of flooding and on 35. And, I think we're going to be thinking about that for a long time, unfortunately, and forever for some people. And, just T's and P's are great. I mean, those go so far. But if you can donate to whatever organizations are actually on the ground helping, I obviously encourage everybody to do whatever they can do to help. But if the least you can do is thoughts and prayers, then that's better than nothing. And just wish the best for everybody down there and dealing with everything as best they can.
Tivy High School was opened in 1891. So it was maybe, there. Yeah. 1891 Tivy High School. And I believe, am I right? That's where Johnny Manziel played.
Yep.
His high school football before eventually that amazing career, especially early on at Texas A&M. The preseason, all Big 12 first team and all that came out, but here are the superlatives. Offensive Player of the Year, Sam Leavitt, quarterback, Arizona State. Defensive Player of the Year, linebacker Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, the senior. And the newcomer of the year, Devin Dampier, the quarterback from New Mexico, who now will run Kyle Whittingham and the Utes offense at Utah. I don't know if there's any surprise. Newcomer of the year can always be kind of a probably numerous names, and same thing with a few of the others. But there we have the superlatives as we enter Big 12 Media Days tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not surprised on any of them. As anybody who's watched this with any regularity knows how big I am on Devin Dampier at Utah. Jacob Rodriguez really kind of. Well, and look, it's because Texas Tech is not known for their defense, but kind of an unsung guy there in Lubbock who's played really well for his entire career there. And, Offensive Player of the Year, maybe the best returning quarterback. That's a bit of a no-brainer there.
I think he's only unsung in that outside of Lubbock, Texas, because he's definitely well sung about there and well talked about. And a big part of like every broadcast I watched last year when he was out there, they talked about Jacob Rodriguez and how much of a veteran presence he was, and really like the best player on the defense that didn't have a whole lot of great players to speak about. And now they hope that's the change, obviously, with what they went and got through the portal and in recruiting, and guys like Lee Hunter, who are on this all Big 12 team. And who else was it? David Bailey that they went and got as well. And they're going to have some guys in the mix for defensive all Big 12, but Jacob Rodriguez was that way before all of their big money splashes. So, yeah, he's been a mainstay, and I was sitting there thinking who I'd pick over him, and I don't think there's any really great candidate. I think you can make a case for a Keaton Thomas at Baylor maybe, somebody that comes to mind, and I know everybody will have somebody of their respective teams that pops into their head, but I don't think there's just some, far and away superstar defensively in the Big 12 this year that has the cachet to just be that clear pick here. So, he seems as good a pick as anybody. I think Devin Dampier, obviously Newcomers, very competitive because there's more newcomers than ever nowadays thanks to the portal, but I do believe he could have the biggest impact given Utah's situation last year. And so I think that's a logical pick. I don't know. I would like to actually see who the other votes are because on a lot of these teams, I do feel like when you get into the positions, everybody just bumps everybody up from the stats and who graduated. So they go like, all right, well, this guy graduated and this guy graduated. Who's the fifth leading wide receiver? All right, he's on my all Big 12 team. Like that's kind of how it feels almost by default. But I'd like to know who the superlative guys the other votes are, especially on newcomer because there's so many options there. And then Levitt at offensive player of the year that's somebody he probably has the most competition for that award, but it's a very logical pick to have right now.
Well, of the first team offensive players that were announced today, Levitt is the leads the way. The running backs, Bryson Washington, Jaheim White. I don't know if they're going to get enough votes to bypass the quarterback who led his team to a Big 12 title. There's some others. Jordan Tyson, who's a teammate. Eric McAllister, wide receiver, TCU. I think people know if you know, but not many. Chase Roberts, who we've known now, for 3 or 4 years because he had a hell of a game in that game at home when BYU beat Baylor in that game that went, 1 or 2 overtimes. So there we are. You're not going to get an offensive lineman who's going to be the offensive player of the year, although maybe one year that would be kind of unique to see that happen.
I think in the case of offensive, you got a lot of quarterbacks you could choose from. Doesn't matter, necessarily who's on the first team or whatever. Like you could go Sawyer Robertson, and that's a great pick for a preseason offensive player of the year. You could go Jalen Daniels if you want to. You could go Baron Morton if you wanted to. You could go a lot of different directions with that offensive. I think defensive is much more of a narrow choice. There's not a lot known about the individual guys as much, and the ones that have got the most attention, I think, is a guy like a Jacob Rodriguez or maybe some of the newer Tech players, but they got to go out there and prove that. And obviously this is preseason, so it's, all you can do is base it off of your assumptions. But I think offensive is going to have some competition, and then defensive is, one that I really don't know who emerges from that, but the newcomer should have plenty of competition as well. I think all those choices make a lot of sense though for a poll like this.
David Bailey, that's the interesting one on newcomer. With it being Devin Dampier, could it not have been David Bailey?
Could have been.
So,
yeah.
And then at the end of the year, they'll have an offensive and defensive newcomer. So, because David Bailey plays on the other side of the ball, I'll reiterate this. At least as the season starts on paper, when it comes to experience and skins on the wall, the Big 12 has the deepest quarterback conference. Because they do have a lot of guys who've been back. As a matter of fact, even West Virginia, who, by a lot of metrics is not picked to have a good season, we know who their quarterback's going to be. Nico Marchiol, he's played quite a bit over his couple years there in relief of Garrett Green. There's only a couple of schools that we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. But when you go through it, when you start with Sam Levitt and Sawyer Robertson and Josh Hoover and Baron Morton and
Avery Johnson
and Avery Johnson and now Devin Dampier and all these guys, you go down the list, and there's a lot of really good quarterbacks in the league. So
Caden Salter could have been a newcomer of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Caden Salter. We know a lot about Caden Salter, already. He's had a great career at Liberty. So
Rocco Beck.
Yeah, Rocco Beck. Golly,
we could go on like
you
said.
Keep going on. And look, there are guys in the SEC who are going to be in the Big Ten and the ACC who are going to be bona fide superstars. Cade Klubnik already is. Carson Beck is a really good player. But, and if you look at the top teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, though, all of them have new quarterbacks for the most part.
A lot of them do, yeah.
Ohio State, Michigan, USC has a new quarterback this year. Oregon has a new quarterback this year. All those
Aller's
teams
back
that
for Penn State, but that's one of the few.
Bama has a new quarterback. Georgia's got a new quarterback, so it's a lot. Yeah. So
there was a lot of news recruiting players starting to make their decisions as they head into the summer, so they can maybe enjoy a few weeks before high school football Practices begin that first week in August, and eventually the games at the end of August. My God. Texas Tech with the decision. Felix Ojo from Mansfield Lake Ridge High School commits to Texas Tech. There was this report initially, which really kind of jumped the gun a little bit. 3 years, $5.1 million. He commits to Texas Tech. Ohio State, Florida, Michigan, and UT, among others, were a part of that. And the reaction to this was, I just sat back and I was like, well, I couldn't play golf because it was raining most of the entire weekend, but my goodness, the reaction. We're going to get to that in a minute. It ends up being the possibility of 3 years, $5.1 million. The agent said something that probably, I'm not so sure, maybe because it's going to give him some more money down the road and clients. But in the end, not that it's still not great money, $775,000 a year with a verbal understanding that Tech would renegotiate up to $5 million if things shift back to what we have called and others have called the Wild West setup prior to the house settlement and the clearinghouse.
Either way,
yeah.
I mean,
it's still,
if you called me up and said, Paul, 775, I'd say, let me get back to you. And then I'll pretend that I'm not going to come back and say yes. And then I'll call back in like, I don't know, a half hour. Is that long enough to make somebody wait? An hour?
You're dumb if you do.
I mean, like, yeah. I don't know. Like, I just want to make sure I don't like call back in 2 minutes and be like, yeah, because then I lose my negotiating for the future. But if you called and said 775, I'd be like, well, I got to talk it over with my family and the important people in my life. And then I would just sit in a room and wait until it seemed like I did that.
Until they deposit some of the money.
Until I'd say, yeah, sure, that's
real.
fine.
This was a big deal. Texas Tech, Craig, as we know, having a huge run, and there's other news we'll have with another news with them in it. But this started a firestorm because it was not a blue blood school. But what a great pickup for Tech. He's got work to do. He's a project in some ways, but also he is the number one rated player out of the state of Texas for 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think the project thing's a lot of people trying to rationalize this. They were disappointed. So now it's all of a sudden, well, he's not that good. I saw a lot of that. Or he's a project. Or we didn't want him on our team, even though guys have done the exact same things. When they chose your team, you accepted them with open arms and they weren't a problem. But this guy didn't choose your team and did that, and he is a problem. And so I saw a lot of that over the weekend. I don't know. I mean, you're always feeding us stuff off Twitter. I stay off of it most of the time. And I dipped my toes in there for a couple minutes here and there, and I saw a lot of the talk about this. I mean, first things first, it's a tremendous pickup for Texas Tech. Let's start there. I mean, that's where it should start. It's a great pickup, and the offensive line, as we know, has been problematic in the past, and they are focusing. And I think especially as they have to refocus sort of where their resources go with the new house settlement. Although they are obviously making plan Bs for if the house settlement doesn't work, as it shows right here, they have plan Bs if in case it goes back to the Wild West that they took advantage of the past year. But they are going to really pour money into the trenches and try to solidify themselves the way that championship teams have solidified themselves in pretty much every year in years past is a defensive line, offensive line. That's what wins you titles, and they're going to have skill guys. So I think that they're getting a huge boon here in a big 5-star, number one rated offensive tackle prospect. I mean, that's an amazing get for Joey McGuire and company. Now, on the flip side, if you just aren't basking in the glory of being a Tech fan, and here's this big pickup to go along with all the other recent big pickups and the 4 stars that you're getting and all of that, there is the looking at this and looking at the money and kind of side-eyeing it a little bit, but I'm just one of those that it is where we are now, and it's above board. I like the fact that they're actually reporting the money now, even though they didn't report it correctly the first time, apparently, or Tech and the manager need to talk a little bit more because they weren't on the same page based on the initial reporting. But regardless, it was kind of refreshing to see that. It was odd to see it, but it was refreshing to just kind of because now with the house settlement, you go, all right, he's making $775, and they got, in theory, $19 million plus to spend on the rest of it. And I know they'll have their NIL where they do what everybody else is going to do and they cheat the cap and do all that. But I mean, in theory, this is 1/20th of your salary cap, basically, right? So, if you're into that sort of thing, now you have numbers to go off of, and you can kind of tinker around with that in your head and enjoy that aspect of the game that's now out there. But yeah, it's it's weird to see just that out front the way that it is. And it's weird to see Tech, among others. Miami was the poster child before that people got pissed off about the way they were spending their money. But it's weird to see it all out front and to see contract details and to see a school that's not normally lending these types of prospects, not ever in their history, is now beating out Texas and Georgia and Florida. And they're doing it because of culture. They're also doing it clearly because of money, but they're doing it in a big way, and it's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. And that's been fascinating to see because I don't remember outside of Miami. There were complaints about Miami, but maybe a little bit of blowback on Ohio State when their initial salary figure last year, but I don't remember that being a big thing. Maybe it's because I'm just too far south that we don't dwell on that this way they do up north. So instead, we dwelled on that report on Texas for like 2 weeks that had their number that was super high. But yeah, it's just a lot to adjust to and get used to, but it's fascinating. And this is an incredible pickup for Texas Tech. And if they can just go win some games this year, and by games, I mean like at least 8, like in the regular season, then the sky's the limit for them. And even if they don't, I still think the sky's the limit because of the way things are set up now. So this is huge.
Well, one of the things that, it's going to be interesting because it's always been knocks on places like Tech is where a place is, or they don't have this or they don't have that. Well, look, when you have the financial backing that they do and you can pay people what they're paying people and not blink about it and negotiate in good faith toe-to-toe with these other, look, they're, Target didn't always have 1 billion stores, but when they came along and Kmart was like, hey, who the hell are you? And they're like, well, sorry, we're going to open a store here. That's what Tech is now. They're now on the scene. So yeah, they haven't been for a while. It doesn't mean they don't deserve to be. And if you can be competitive in a marketplace, then that's what it's going to be. So fans may be like, I would never go to Lubbock for $775,000. You would eat crap off the street in Lubbock. Believe me, that's a lot of money. So yeah, there's going to be all that traditional, like, oh, this is only about NIL. Well, look, guess what? About 50% of it now has to be.
I'm going to tell you something right now. Anybody who you see who says they would not go and have fun in Lubbock, Texas as a college kid making $750,000 has never been there and has no idea what they're talking about. Yeah. They have absolutely zero idea what they're talking about. If you can't go to Lubbock as a 20-year-old, 19-year-old, 21-year-old, 22-year-old making $750,000 playing big-time football at a school that's obsessed with it, if you don't think that's going to be the time of your effing life, then you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what to tell you, but you don't know what you're talking about. So every time I see this now, I roll my eyes and I go, they don't know what they're talking about because they get stuck up on this Lubbock thing and they don't understand that it's a great college town. They don't get it, I feel like. And Shahan's article a couple weeks ago got a lot of play, and the people who know, and that's why he got such a big reaction is because the people that know. And I know because I experienced it myself, but I was not making that type of money, and I had a hell of a time. Yeah. So I can speak from experience that I know these guys I know what they're being sold on. I know they actually have other things now in play, and I can see guys before the money being convinced to go there, and I know guys that had a great time before NIL was ever a thing, much less making nearly $1 million a year. So that's just insanity.
Okay, so the thing that you knock in a lot of the Big 12 towns, like Lubbock or Ames or Manhattan, or the ones that are kind of out, Waco,
even though it's in the middle of
out far of things. Okay. It's because on the weekends you used to have to okay, if I really want to go home for 4th of July, while I'm working out in Lubbock, getting ready for the season, or it's Labor Day. Well, it's not going to be the Labor Day, but it's the long weekend, a holiday. Yeah. I want to go home for a holiday. It's a 3-day weekend. I want to go do that. Driving, well, 2 of your days are going to be driving. Well, guess what? If I'm making $775K, I can hop over to the airport, and it's not a problem.
Yeah, you can be in Dallas in 45 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's way overblown. And I understand back in the day to some extent when you didn't have the benefit of money and all that. But, yeah, I just think that's a telltale sign of somebody who has absolutely no idea what they're talking about when it comes to Tech and Lubbock is when they start playing, well, it's in Lubbock card. Over a guy who's going to make nearly $1 million. Anyways, enough of that nonsense. This is a huge pickup. You you and I, we all know why it's rubbing people the wrong way. And look, Tech's going to have to perform. If not, they're going to be the butt of every joke known to man throughout the entire college football season. The moment they drop like that second game, if it's early enough, they're going to be the talk of the town, but just in the opposite way of the way they've been all offseason, because now they have a target on their back. They know that. They're embracing that. They're ready for that. And they should be, because they've added a lot of really great players. But, yeah, I'm ready for the talk to end and the walk to begin, and we're getting close to that, although we're about to do way more talking over the next couple of days, because it is talking season, as someone once coined. The talk is getting louder and louder about Texas Tech, and moves like this are only going to make it grow louder. But if they go out there and perform, then they're just they're scratching the surface, really.
He'll be a 2-star by tomorrow. And here's another thing. I saw some of it, and I actually don't get into the weeds as much, but I did see some of the reactions that are bitter about a player, an 18-year-old or whatever it is, if they commit or decommit or whatever. And every school gains commitments from others who are committed, et cetera. But one of the funniest ones, and this kind of puts things in perspective, somebody on their timeline said, I just didn't like his film, like just some random fan. And then 2 or 3 days later, can't wait for the commitment of Ojo. And also turn time, or I think his name is, we're going to have 2 4 5-star tackles by the end of Saturday. We are loading up. And then all of a sudden, I didn't like what I saw in his film. Good for him. Good for him. Good for Texas Tech as they pick up a 5-star, the number 1 player in the state of Texas class of 2026.
Yeah, and they had a bunch of other big pickups last week, but he was obviously the biggest one, literally. And they have a couple of big-time anchors at the tackle position for the next few years, so long as they lock these guys down and keep them in the fold all the way through signing day. But, yeah, it's a lot of sour grapes, as you might imagine, especially when you get to the bigger schools who are used to having their way, or if they do lose, they don't lose to a school like Texas Tech, and if they do lose, they don't lose because of money to a school like Texas Tech. And so it's a thing for a lot of people to have to learn how to deal with, and not many are dealing with it too well. We'll see, because those are the types of fans that the moment they lose a game or two, that's when they're going to be on the attack mode. See? And so it's up to Joey and his staff to go win some football games this year. And if they don't, we know there's going to be a lot of egg on their face. But in the meantime, everything's looking up and the future is looking really bright for Texas Tech. And look, there's not parts of this that I just love wholly. I mean, I do think it's kind of weird that we're in this space of talking about contracts and buying guys and like this. It's just a weird space. We're all getting used to it, but it is the reality now. And so Felix Ojo's not the first guy we've heard about with details like this, and he's definitely not going to be the last guy we hear about. And he's not the first guy that's rubbed big fan bases the wrong way. He's not going to be the last guy that does it. So I'm going to kind of sit back and just enjoy that there's somebody in the room that's kind of being the chaos agent and upending the norm. The Blue Bloods are unhappy, and you know what? Good. That means something kind of fun's happening, I believe.
Because they probably, most of the time, we didn't know what they were paying, but it was under the table. And they weren't the only ones. But Felix Ojo, congratulations on the decision. People can make fun of it. They can hate it. They don't like it the way it went down. Doesn't matter. Joey McGuire and Texas Tech got yet another highly ranked player. They had a hell of a week. By the way, speaking of highly ranked players, now, we don't get too deep into like class of 27. That's not even, that's a lot. But they also are about to get a decision from a 5-star edge, LaDainian Guyton, now predicted to go to Texas Tech. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me if you're a Tech fan that we have in the chat room, that his quarterback on the team this year at that school is already committed to Texas Tech. So there's a little connection there from his specific high school. And so there's another note right there.
Yeah, they were very well prepared for all this. Tech was, and now that they know what the rules are and how they can do it, they're just going to start rolling, I think, in this. And they've got a guy who is a head coach who is a really good recruiter, and he's really somebody you want to be in a room with. And so he's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with everybody. And of course, we've just spent a lot of time talking about the financial backing. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how this shifts when it comes to those blue-chip recruits, because there is a salary cap because of what they can spend and because it will be easier. I think there's going to be a lot more talent dispersion. That doesn't mean that, like, you won't get a group that, LeBron changes this thing and decides to go to all one place together. But I mean, you've already seen when you've got 5 stars going to Tech, that never happens. When you've got 5 stars, 4 and 5 stars going to Sacramento State, like those are numbers. Those are numbers out of the pool, right? That aren't there anymore. That were there for
it's a different time.
20 schools.
It's a different time. Notre Dame, the lineage of some of their commitments for the class of 2026. I normally wouldn't put one up if they got a commitment. Let maybe a local player. But look at the lineage of these commitments. Larry Fitzgerald's son, Devin, Thomas Davis Sr.'s son, Thomas Jr., and then Jermichael Finley, who played at UT from Diboll High School in East Texas near Lufkin. He committed to Notre Dame. Texas was also in the mix. So those are the bloodlines. And Plaxico Burris' son is also
Jerome Bettis.
And Jerome Bettis' son. All of them have committed to play, at least for Marcus Freeman. And Notre Dame thought that was pretty cool. And Lloyd Carr's grandson, the quarterback, committed to play at Notre Dame. He's a Michigan man.
Yeah, I think Marcus Freeman's about to be, and again, it's a little bit harder at Notre Dame because they have, some academic standards things, but they have one of the most fun, interesting coaches in the country in Marcus Freeman. He's young. He's different than a lot of coaches. He kind of gets things, I think, that like most, old school coaches don't, but he still has that, that kind of, old school football knowledge to him. It would be like, if I was getting recruited right now, as much as like when I was a kid thinking about going to school in South Bend, Indiana, where it's cold, if, Marcus Freeman came and talked to me, I'd be like, you know what? I'll buy a jacket. It's fine. I'm good. I'm interested to see where Notre Dame goes.
Yeah, I mean, kind of connecting these two. I mean, Notre Dame tried to hire Texas Tech's James Blanchard in the offseason and was unsuccessful in that. So just kind of connecting those two stories we've been talking about. But, it's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know what leads all these guys, there at this same time. If there's just something sort of unique outside of Marcus Freeman maybe being that guy that's just so unique, where all these former NFL stars kids are heading to play for the Irish, but it's really cool. And they're going to have some star-studded crowds at practices and spring games and their games on Saturday for sure, more so than usual because of all the proud dads and ex-pros that are going to be watching their sons. So that's very cool. And man, it's just kind of crazy how all that's added up and stacked up, and also crazy how old I feel seeing all these young guys who
it makes me feel old as
have
hell, I'll tell you that.
These now older sons that doesn't seem that long ago I was watching them, like Larry Fitzgerald play down in College Station. I know it was 20 years ago at this point, but it doesn't feel that way. So to see his son getting ready to go play college ball is just shows you how fast life goes by.
We have 3 guests today. We also are going to look at Circa Sports. They put out their over-under on wins for the 4 power conferences, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and ACC a little bit later on. And also a cool little historical note about the American Football Conference, American Athletic Conference, when it comes to football coaches who had success or have had success there and where they ended up. Xavier McDonald, Paul brought up Sacramento State. We don't need to discuss all of these, but 4-star wide receiver commits to Sacramento State, Brennan Marion. He ends up the first blue chip high school commitment in program history as they try to figure out what their future is and not allowing any of the, delays or negativity of where they're going to play, who are they going to play, what level they're going to play. They're going about their business.
I mean, this is, people getting excited about what's going on there, and young, exciting coach. But I mean, like when you see, like I said, when you see blue chip recruits going to Sacramento State, not knowing what their schedule is going to be 2 years from now and like what kind of conference they're going to be in, it's different. So those are guys that are out of the water that normally would be, going to a place like Georgia or Texas. And now, that's one less. I mean, it doesn't seem like that much, but it adds up as you disperse them around the country, hey, look, I really would like to stay close to home here and, good old, central Nebraska, but they're paying much more to go there. And they're like, well, no, not really, not anymore. So
Calvin Russell, 5-star wide receiver, Fran Brown got himself a dude, picked them over Michigan, Florida State, Oregon. Initially yesterday afternoon on his Twitter feed, he goes, I ain't committed to nobody. And then this was on his feed earlier today, that he is, in fact, a 5-star wide receiver. Syracuse has had some historical names over their history, but here's another example where Syracuse picks up a 5-star playmaker in Calvin Russell, commits to the Orangemen.
I guess just more of that talent dispersion going different places than maybe it would otherwise. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's just all very normal, but to see Tech land in their class, that's certainly not normal. We know what the wild card there is, but is that happening everywhere else? Sacramento State certainly looks like they're stating the case for the talent dispersion being a lot more than it once was, and Syracuse landing 5 stars. I mean, that's Fran Brown, but that's speaking to that a little bit maybe as well. I mean, there's 5 stars that land at programs that aren't the same 10 programs all the time, but still, it's just kind of unique to see all the schools we're talking about here. And I know we could probably talk about who Texas landed or who Ohio State landed, but all the guys who say they care about all the other leagues are going to cover all that throughout the majority of their shows and whatnot, and that will get a lot of coverage. But it is cool to see the kind of not darlings of college football going out and making huge splashes, and a lot of them doing so at the same time, and maybe giving some hope to the smaller schools out there that this new world isn't going to be all about the big schools, and it is going to be more evenly distributed, as Paul has referred to. But time will tell. It's still, I think, too early to really know, but there's signs that could be the case because of how things operate now.
That's right. It's no longer the Orangemen. Thank you, Wet Blanket, for reminding me of that. Fran Brown, though, great pickup for them, the 5-star receiver in Calvin Russell.
Yeah, and I don't want to make every story about like some big, like it's the life or death of college. Like, not everything has to be like it's this or it's that. It's this new wave or it's the way that it's always been. Like, Syracuse just has a great coach who's a great recruiter, and he landed a 5-star. It's also just that.
I could see me playing.
It's also just that. But everything does get looked at big picture because nobody knows what the big picture looks like in 5 years. So we're all trying to figure it out and take every sign imaginable to try to figure out where this thing is going. And so some believe that it will lead to talent fanning out, and this is a sign of that, but it's also a sign that just Fran Brown's going to land the occasional stud there at Syracuse because that's what he's going to do.
Gary, we'll do Oklahoma later. A change coming eventually at Oklahoma athletic director. Let's show what Paxton sent me over the weekend. Paxton from the chat room. This was his dinner. Extra cheesy. I think that's scallop potatoes. There's some asparagus that was on the grill and prime rib. Prime rib. I'll start sharing some of these pictures if you guys want to send me the good stuff that you cook on the weekend. We'll do that. I think that's probably for me. I don't like it like some want it to be bloody everywhere. I'm not into that.
For prime rib, I mean, like, that's a little bit more than I like it. No, I would take it that way. Yeah. But for prime rib, it's supposed to be rare. That's the ideal, internal temperature.
That's why I always get the parts on the edges. Yeah, if I cook one. Yeah.
But I haven't had it since the last time I was at the Cowboys press box, to be quite honest with you, which is like such a weird thing to happen when you go to most like other NFL press boxes and like, hey, we've got sandwiches and hot dogs, which I love. I mean, believe me, I'll never say no. But you walk into AT&T Stadium, it's like, oh, prime rib from a Wagyu cow right here. All right, yes. Thank you, Jeeves.
One more
See you next
food
week.
note. This is from Derek Young. He covers K-State. We had Derek on last week. He put up this note. My 4th of July hot take, mustard is evil. No. And then I said, wait a minute. We love hot dogs and what we like on them. You're going to die in a hill with this one. And then he says, it's the one food item in this world that's just repulsive to me. Hot dogs, I love hot dogs. I love brats, but without mustard, please. Give me ketchup, which is a controversial take on hot dogs. Jalapenos, whatever, just not mustard.
I am of the belief that ketchup on hot dogs is for when you are 12 years and younger. And then once you, get to 8th grade, you should start eating mustard on a hot dog or a sausage or whatever it is. I think that there's a time and a place for that. And it's when you're young and your palate is growing. But once your palate grows, you expand out into mustard. And there's many varieties of mustard.
There's that crusty, almost like ground mustard. Yeah. And then there's also, and by the way, before mustard, to me, I like mustard, is sauerkraut. Sauerkraut's the evil empire to me when it comes to that.
That's an acquired taste, but I acquired it.
Yeah.
But it's tough. I mean, it's one of those things that you have to get past. The first time you've ever smelled sauerkraut, unless you like it's in your blood or something, you're not going like, oh, what's that? I want to have that. You kind of smell it and you get used to it. It's kind of like, fancy cheese.
It's fermented.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
not. My mom would make that for us if she got mad at us. And that happened a lot of watery lima beans too. All right. When we come back, Ari Temkin will join us. Big 12 Media Days tomorrow. We also, at 4:00 today, Eli Letterman from theathletic.com on many things when it comes to some of the wrap-up of the week and what's going on with college football, as a lot of players are starting to commit so they can enjoy part, if they can, their summer. And then Jason Caldwell, he's from 247 Sports, covers Auburn. And there's some concerns about Hugh Freeze and Auburn and their class and recruiting and what's going on with them. But the last I saw, they're still expected to be a team that wins approximately 8 games and gets to a bowl game, and they'll open their year up at the end of August here against Baylor at McLean Stadium. Thank you for your time. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you stayed dry. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, LowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. What do I mean by used to be? As you get older, this is for men. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. It could be as simple as your energy is not the same and you're taking supplements and vitamins and you work out, or at least you're active and you eat well and you're getting good sleep. So something's still going on, and drop of testosterone level can be a part of that. Yes, it could also affect your mood swings. It could affect your sex drive. It could affect also the ability to perform if you have the sex drive. That's a part of it. That's in play too. That's the one that gets almost all of the attention. Dr. Kent Petty can help you out by going to his website, pettycliniclowt.com. Tell him I sent you. He will set you up with an appointment to get your blood work. He gets the results, be in touch with you. If your testosterone level, if you're one of those 1 out of 3 men that have low testosterone levels, well, he can help you with an option to increase it so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
Employee Pricing Plus is back at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are insane. Get a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab. Your choice, 1.9 for 72 months, or $12,000 off and 3.9 for 72 months, or a flat-out $16,000 off MSRP. Wow! Ford, GM, or Toyota owner, take $1,500 more off only at Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram, where big plans start with the perfect ride at great deals. From weekend getaways to daily drives, your next new truck, SUV, or car is waiting.
Come by. Let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
You can tune in to Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. In fact, they'll be there with their setup tomorrow, and he will be there. Ari Temkin joins us on 365 Sports both on Tuesday and Wednesday. Looking forward to seeing Ari and the guys from Big 12 Radio. Ari, thank you for your time. What's the one or two, in your opinion, biggest questions that we'll try to get answered the next day or two, and what are maybe one or two of the biggest storylines?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest question is Deion Sanders going to be there? With his health status and that situation. I mean, I'd put it pretty much at a coin flip. Obviously, the expectation is that all coaches are there, but, we were surprised when he wasn't at the spring meetings. And then we got our answer as to why he wasn't shortly thereafter because of his health. And, I'd imagine that he's trying to get as healthy as he possibly can and lead up to fall camp, which is the most important thing. And that's keeping the main thing. So it's also interesting that Colorado's sending 2 quarterbacks. They're bringing both Caden Salter and the 17-year-old and Julian Lewis. So those are kind of 2 questions that I have. And then, the thing that stood out to me, Smokey, and I'm curious for your thoughts on this. So it's covered the league as long as you have. I can't remember the league being this good and having this much depth along the offensive and defensive lines. To me, like, they've got at least 5 teams that are elite on both lines of scrimmage and offensive and defensive line. And then everybody else is at least good on one of the offensive and defensive line variety. Like Oklahoma State's a team that I don't know how much optimism you can have around Oklahoma State, but I think they're going to have a really good offensive line. BYU's another team. I think they're going to have a really good defensive line. So, like, to me, there are 5 teams, Baylor included, that are elite on their offensive and defensive lines. And then everybody else across the conference, like, is good on either their offensive or a defensive line, which I can never remember a time where that's been the case. And the other part to that is, like, usually this conference is flush with wide receiver talent, with skill position guys that are really good. And, well, I think they're going to have those this year. Like, for me, their bread is really buttered on their offensive and defensive lines, more so than in any other position, and certainly the skill position.
Ari, this is, I think we've talked about this before, but, when you see the Superlatives come out and you see Devin Dampier as a newcomer and Sam Levitt, as we start this season, now, obviously everything is fluid and can change. This is by far, you mentioned the offensive defensive lines. That's good news for the quarterbacks, especially on the offensive side, because this is already a deep league when it comes to returning quarterbacks. You start going through blue bloods across the country, and a lot of them have new guys this year.
Yeah, and I mean, that's also a huge storyline, Paul, this conference is loaded at quarterback. And, whereas last year it was like Shadur Sanders and then a bunch of other question marks, many of those question marks were answered this past season. And, so BYU is going through it right now, trying to figure out, without Jake Retzloff, who's going to be their quarterback, given the situation they're dealing with there. UCF is probably a little bit unsure. I would be shocked if Julian Lewis started at Colorado, but, you can probably count on one hand the amount of teams that don't have the position solidified, and maybe even less than that. Like, it might even just be UCF, and BYU even might have a sense of who they've got. So, I think that says a lot about the conference, the talent that they have at quarterback. Like, I think they've got maybe 3 NFL quarterbacks, maybe more than that, but at least where the season starts, Sam Levitt, Rocco Beck, and Sawyer Robertson are 3 guys to me that are NFL quarterbacks. I think Baron Morton has a chance to add his name to the list if he could have a big year this year. So, I don't think there's any question that this, and then especially compared to the SEC and the Big Ten, who lost, a boatload of experienced and well-known starters. A bunch of these teams are recycling 4 and 5-star quarterbacks through, but in terms of, known guys, it's basically, Vanderbilt and Florida, and a few other here or there. But for the most part, it's, the most experienced and best quarterbacks from before the season starts are in the Big 12.
Ari, I'm very curious. I always look forward to talking to Kalani Sitake, but I'm very curious of, just how much he gets peppered with the quarterback questions and what he'll have to say about that. But now that we know there's a resolution, how much does your opinion on BYU change knowing that Jake Retzloff will not be the quarterback?
Honestly, not that much. Look, I think Retzloff took a huge step 2 years ago to last year. Like, he was basically an unplayable quarterback 2 years ago. And, he was pretty good last year. But I thought, like, some of their losses down the stretch of the season, like the Kansas game, for instance, like, he makes a few throws in that game and BYU wins it. Like, down the stretch of this season, he was needing to make 1 or 2 more plays over the course of multiple games that he just couldn't make. Like, they were just throws where he was missing down the field. And it's like, if he makes those, these games are over. And instead, he's an interception, and then his team gets an interception. It's a pick 6, and they take it to the house. Like, fumble recovery for touchdown. Like, their defense was so opportunistic last year that I think it sort of washed away some of the issues that he had down the stretch of some of those games. Now, again, he was improved, and there's no reason I think that he wasn't going to improve going into this season, but they've got talent at the position. I mean, I think Bear Bachmeier, to me, is going to be the guy that starts. I'm also super excited for the Bear Tiger Bachmeier connection because Bear's brother Tiger also transferred in. Mm-hmm. So apologies to Hank Bachmeier, who got really the short end of the stick in terms of names in that family. There's Hank, there's Bear, and there's Tiger. But I mean, he's the guy that's going to start for me. And I didn't think BYU was going to be a top of the Big 12 kind of team this year. Like, I think BYU they've got a lot of talent. They're really good on defense, and I'm excited to see there. But like, I still had major questions about their offense, and that doesn't change with the Retzloff situation to me. So I still think they're a middle of the pack, potentially 8-9 win team in this conference. And I'm excited to see what Bear Brockmeyer brings to the table.
Of the teams that last year did not make a bowl game, KU did. Utah, no, they did not. That's right.
Baylor made sure of that.
Baylor knocked them out at McLean Stadium. They had some quality wins, though. They did. In fact, beating BYU is one of them. Which of the teams that were not bowl eligible do you think, is there one in particular you think will absolutely rocket back into the race this year?
I've got 3 teams, actually, that I think could be bowl eligible teams that were not last year. But let me first say, on the Baylor-Kansas side, there were some weird Baylor-Kansas things last year. So Baylor lost to BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State. Those are 3 teams that Kansas beat consecutively. They're the first team ever to not be a top 25 team and knock off 3 consecutive top 25 teams. So it was funny. Baylor lost to those 3 teams. Kansas knocked those 3 teams off, and then Baylor absolutely laid the tar to Kansas and just completely dominated them on the ground. I mean, it was unbelievable what Baylor did in that game. So just a weird situation last year where Baylor lost those 3 games, Kansas won those 3 games, and then obviously it was decided in the field the last week of the season, which held Kansas out of being bowl eligible. But I do think Kansas returns to bowl eligibility this year. They lose a ton, but I think their offensive line is still going to be very good. Jalen Daniels is back at quarterback, and even though he's had some injury issues, I think Isaiah Marshall behind him, who was a high 3-star recruit coming in last year out of Detroit, he's got a very similar skill set to Jalen Daniels. So I think they're way better positioned to potentially lose Daniels if that is the case this year. I like Utah as a team. Like, what's funny is I thought Utah was going to be kind of underrated coming into the season, and reading some Phil Steele, reading some other magazines and publications and stuff, they're almost now overrated. Now, I do think they return to a bowl game. They're just too good up front on offense. And like, their offense was so bad last year. So bad. The fact that the defense didn't completely check out says a lot about their defense, their defensive makeup. So like, I don't know how much better they're going to be on offense, but they're going to be better on offense. And so based on having Devin Dampier, based on having a robust rushing attack, like, I absolutely think Utah should be a bowl team this year. And then I think Cincinnati as well. And look, Scott Satterfield probably needs it in order to keep his job. With Brendan Sorsby coming back, there was a weird dynamic, and I'm excited to ask Satterfield about this. Like, Sorsby, the way he finished the season, he wanted to run the ball a lot more than earlier on in the season. I wonder if there was an injury or something he was dealing with, because he became much more of a rushing threat quarterback, and he didn't want to throw as much. And I thought that hampered the Cincinnati offense. they're really good to me across their offensive line, and then they're really good off their defensive line too, with Dante Corleone, probably the most underrated player in college football, coming back to man their defensive line. So I think they've got a ton of talent. Joe Royer at tight end broke Travis Kelce's single season receptions record for a tight end last season. I think, he's in line to have a really good season this year. So I think Cincinnati be the third team I think could be a bowl team this year.
What was your reaction to the reaction, and also Tech getting the 5-star offensive lineman out of Mansfield at Lake Ridge High School, and how that set off a storm of what the hell's going on to, hey, by the way, congratulations, you got a hell of a deal?
Well, I mean, we could all be united in how upset Texas fans were, right? I mean, far be it from Texas Tech to still find ways to beat Texas long distance. But Felix Ojo was going to Texas, and 9 times out of 10, that guy goes to Texas. But this ain't that time. And look, this is a new era. It's funny. We're now figuring out why Nick Saban was complaining so much about NIL, because while he said it was making things unfair, what he really meant was it was tipping the fairness scales away from blue bloods like Alabama more towards a much more fair and equitable system. I know we've talked a ton, guys, on this spot about the importance of recruiting 4- and 5-star kids and how much of a straight line that makes towards winning national championships in college football. Well, I mean, Texas Tech lands Ojo. So this is now 3 5-stars in the 2026 class already in the Big 12. We talked about the 2 quarterbacks. We had never seen a 5-star quarterback commit to a Big 12 school. Well, now they've added a 5-star offensive tackle and the number 1 offensive tackle in the country to that list. They're also in, as we found out this morning from a crystal ball projection, on a 4-star in this class and another 5-star in next year's class. Mm-hmm. So they're rolling right now. And look, I mean, if Texas signs a guy or Ohio State signs a guy, it's because it's Texas or Ohio State. But if Texas Tech or Baylor signs that 4 or 5-star kid, it's because of money. But the money is fairly equal across the board, guys. Like if Sark wanted to land Ojo and he got a call from Ojo's representatives, then we're like, hey, this is how much it's going to cost. Like Sark could find that money in the couch cushions. Don't tell me that it's about money when it comes down to Texas Tech, but it's not when it comes down to Texas. Those teams have recruited at a high level, and for Texas, much longer than Ohio State has, because they weren't winning and they were still recruiting at a high level because of the money that they have. So suddenly now everybody has money and money to spend, and and Texas fans are complaining about it, when it's like, well, that was what helped get you up to that spot anyways. Like the Pancake Club and infusing money into your NIL is the whole reason you landed Campbell and some of those offensive tackles and Kelvin Banks that got you to the playoff this past year. So shut your mouth, okay? Because that's exactly what you've been using. It's the same playbook. So it's not any different if Tech is doing it. It's exactly what Texas does. So I love it. I mean, I think what they've done in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of funding everything, in terms of, the cohesion between what Cody Campbell is doing and what Joey McGuire and James Blanchard are doing, it's on another level. And yeah, I mean, we should get used to this, because a rising tide lifts all boats. What Tech is doing, what Houston did with Henderson, what BYU is doing with their 5-star, like this speaks to recruits across the nation that the Big 12 is somewhere you can go, somewhere you can win at a high level, and somewhere you can get to the NFL.
No, Ari, this is how it works. If you have money for a long time, then you're allowed to spend it on things. If you're new money, then you have to wait until you cross some sort of barrier to be allowed to spend money and get people to come and make your football team better. This is not, this is not egalitarian,
Right.
We're not, this is not France. This is America. It's kind of silly that everybody, and I think part of it is just like the psychology of like, I can't believe, they're going there because he got money. Yeah, it's legal. It's not a big deal. Just
right.
Like, you would go somewhere for money. We'd all go somewhere for money. So why are we judging now?
And there's a straight line. Like the Pancake Club was established at Texas, where they were paying offensive linemen tons of money, and they were able to galvanize their base to create that money. And like the Pancake Club was announced, and then the next day they land DJ Campbell and Kelvin Banks. So like you're going to tell me that was not the exact same thing that you did? And remember, Texas was terrible for a decade, and yet they still landed top recruiting classes. So the same, all these people in the mentions of like, oh, I hope you like losing. Like all these Texas fans, like where were you for a decade when they were recruiting at a high level and losing? The one thing I'll say to you, Paul, too, is I really hope that Deion shows up, because what does Deion have against Florida State, man? Hakeem Williams now, like he is going straight for his alma mater. Like he has it out for Florida State.
You know why? Because he walked in, He said, I would like this job. And they said, we're going to interview some other people. And then they hired Mike Norvell and not him. And he's like, my face is on the damn wall out there. And they're like, yeah, we appreciate it, but we'd like to just see you get some other coaching experience. You know, it's been really bad here with Willie Taggart. We'd like to see you get more. And he was like, all right, well, go to hell. And there you have it. So
I mean, Travis Hunter, Hakeem Williams, like he's flipping 4-star, 5-star guys. Like there's a long list of guys that were supposed to go to Florida State or went to Florida State that now are in Colorado. So
hey,
Deion has it out for them.
I'll tell you this. It would not surprise me if he has, somebody there that tells him where he's going, where they're going, and then he just like waits for them to leave and then swoops in.
And he's only doing it at Florida State. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Ari, how personal should we take it that there's no media poll this year?
I mean, we're bad at this, guys. Like, let's be honest here. So, a big reason is because of perception. And the Big 12 media has not done a good enough job collectively of picking the right teams to win the Big 12 year over year. And so when Arizona State goes and wins the Big 12 the year that they were picked last, and it clearly impacted the AP poll because Arizona State, as John Wilner from the Mercury News pointed out, Arizona State was not ranked for the first time until mid-November, and they were 8-2. Without a preseason Big 12 poll that has them last, I don't know if that's the case. Now, you can also make the case that the Associated Press voters are also really bad at voting, so they also shouldn't vote because that does play a role seemingly in the college football playoff rankings and everything else. So, yeah, I would love to see the AP poll preseason go away. If I'm the Big 12, I'm lobbying for that to start week 3 like it does at the FCS level because perception is reality in college football, and the Big 12 does not have a good perception behind it right now. I think it's starting to flip a little bit, and I think some of the offseason talk around Arizona State and Texas Tech will help to flip that. But, guys, yeah, I mean, that's a huge perception issue that this conference is trying to overcome. And so, yeah, if I'm the conference, I'm lobbying the Associated Press to not release a poll in the preseason, to not release a poll until week 3. Now, they're not going to do it because, well, I don't know why they wouldn't do it. They're trying to sell newspapers or I don't know what.
Well, what the networks love to be able to say they have number 1 against number 4.
Yeah.
Or number 2 against 3 or whatever. That's one of the TV broadcast early on. It is great talking points leading up to it, but it always is neat to see after the year how many were completely whiffed.
But like it's good talking point. The problem is it plays too large of a role.
Oh, it does
in the outcome of the season.
There's no question.
So like, I totally agree with you, Smokey. Like it's great to have, but the fact that like the first college football playoff rankings come out and it's basically mirrors the AP says that none of these people have any idea what they're doing. We should go back to the computer rating system, even if it's just a replacement for the AP. Have the computers rank the preseason top 25 teams. I would much rather that than writers who, quite frankly, are only watching their teams and don't have any sense of anybody else.
Thank you, buddy. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Look forward to it. Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. He'll see him tomorrow, along with the setup that they have inside the Star, the Cowboys indoor stadium in Frisco. We'll be there bright and early tomorrow and also throughout the day tomorrow and also Wednesday. When we come back, Eli Letterman tries to summarize the weekend. A lot of commits have come in, and there's many more still to come. His thoughts about the Ojo commitment and more, and what does it actually mean? That, plus we have at 4:25, Jason Caldwell from 247 Sports, and this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club Family Pasta Night is back. And there's a picture of what they have, and it's a big bowl, and it looks like great spaghetti. You can join them Thursday for a delicious evening of pasta favorites, family fun, memories in the making. Build your own pasta bowls, pile on the toppings as you like, and watch the chefs bring your creation to life just like you like it. That's coming up on Thursday of this week at 5 o'clock at the Baylor Club. Also, Luau Night. The annual Luau Night, back and better than ever. That's coming up on Saturday night this week there at McLean Stadium. The chefs are amazing. The amenities are fantastic. The views are great too. And memberships available. If you tell them that you watch us or you're part of 365 Sports, tell them that, and they have specials for you. It ranges. I'm not sure exactly what it is right now, but it has included maybe even less of any kind of initiation fee. I'm not saying completely wiped out. I'm not saying that's what's on the table now, but they do that. And also even like the first month of dues can be waived. It's the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Eli Letterman joins us, 365 Sports, with Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. We appreciate your time. If you have not yet subscribed to what we do every day with this channel, we would appreciate you doing that, and it will also give you that, hey, by the way, the show's about to start. We appreciate that. Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, and Andrew Valet running the mothership today here on and at our studios, 365 Sports. Eli, thank you very much for your time. It was a whirlwind of a lot of high-level recruits that committed. Not everybody. There's still many more left, but your thoughts about just kind of summarizing the weekend. Was it all down to this, the commitment, the reaction to Ojo at Lake Ridge High School in Mansfield?
I mean, it certainly took the weekend. Thank you guys for having me. I mean, the news around it itself, obviously, and all the talk about the financials and the different numbers out there took over. But, it really was a fascinating recruiting weekend because it was more than just, Alabama catching fire or some big programs, including A&M, doing well. I mean, Calvin Russell landing with Syracuse over a bunch of big-time programs was huge. Notre Dame, I mean, they've kind of filled out their wide receiver class now, but within that, you've got the sons of Jermichael Finley and Larry Fitzgerald. There's plenty of interest in there, and it is going to continue, as you said. In just a couple of days, we'll have Lamar Brown, at least our #1 prospect over at ESPN, making his commitment. So there's plenty going on and plenty that just happened on the weekend past.
Eli, how have you seen any trends shift in the 2 weeks since House has been a thing?
Good question. I think probably not so much immediate in really because I think a lot of what's been going on for the last few months has been related to House. I mean, obviously things are official now, and maybe some deals that were signed before House can now officially go through. But I think when you talk about any of the big 5-star commitments or really a lot of any of the commitments that we've seen over the first 6 months of this year and in the 2026 cycle, those have all been tied some way, shape, or form to a future rev share model. I don't think Jackson Cantwell committed to Miami and Jared Curtis committed to Georgia, for instance, in May, without that being a part of it. That's not suggesting that those are down to money necessarily, specifically to money, but I don't think big moves have been going on, this spring without this in mind. And so I think we're learning, and I think maybe the biggest takeaway that probably a lot of folks maybe would be surprised by, and this has been the case before House kind of got settled. Now that it is settled, it's not all that different. Is maybe every program in the country seems to have a different feeling and belief over how things are going to be enforced, how this is all going to play out. And it's why the reporting around this stuff is quite a challenge and kind of all of us trying to understand it, because I think everybody is acting in a sense under a different set of rules. We'll find out what the rules and enforcements are really going to be, over these next few months and years. But I think everybody is viewing the future and what the House settlement really means for recruiting, for rev share, for the transfer portal. They're operating under different understandings of what the future might look like, and that's making things fairly interesting.
You kind of touched on it there at the top, but what are people around the industry or maybe other coaches you talk to? What's kind of the buzz and the talk about Texas Tech that you hear these days?
I think, it's varied. Everyone, first and foremost, I'm sure everybody wishes they could spend like them. And, there's, I think, plenty of folks who are both, not surprised that not only that the money, has made a difference, but it's never really, there are some recruitments that swing entirely on the money, but it's just part of the sales pitch. And anybody who knows Joey McGuire knows, sort of the pull he has and the personality he has. So you're combining him, this program that has begun to develop some serious talent with significant money. I don't think a lot of folks are surprised there, but I also do think there's skepticism. We talk about this in a lot of other sports. The team that wins the off season, that doesn't guarantee you a whole lot. I think there's some skepticism about some of the guys they sprung for and spent a lot on, and programs that maybe weren't ultimately that disappointed when they were outbid for a player, were not in any position or didn't have interest in going as high as Texas Tech did on a guy or two. But most of all, it's intrigue, because they're going to come into this season probably one of the most intriguing storylines of a team that could seriously contend the college football playoff of anybody. And so I think there's a lot of fascination around Tech, a lot of curiosity around Tech, and even within that conversation of, how are different programs treating the House settlement and what this future is going to look like. I think they're on the aggressive end, and everyone's very curious about how that's going to pan out.
The rule is that you never want to replace the legend, but replace the one whoever did replace the legend. And Kalen DeBoer, of course, had really nothing to win last year, other if, in fact, they just status quo were 12-1 or whatever, or 14-1 or whatever the record could have been. But they didn't do that. It was a disappointing year, losing to Vanderbilt. But right now they are on fire when it comes to recruiting. Is that just because they're Alabama, or are they doing something a little bit different this year?
Well, I think, one piece that we've certainly heard, and it's been mixed, is about kind of the presence they've had in the state of Alabama since Nick Saban left. I mean, Nick Saban's best teams, the national title teams that have dominated, the last 15 years of college football were all rooted. Those best recruiting classes were all rooted in Alabama. And I think last year's cycle, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but they didn't sign, more than a handful of guys out of Alabama. It was fewer than Saban had ever signed in a class. And there was skepticism going into this cycle about what that was going to look like. And not only have they added in big ways in recent weeks, I mean, they've really gotten hot. And it's similar to a year ago where they kind of caught fire in June, July. But within that group, you've got Xavier Crowell, who was a top 10 state target. Sedarian Morgan, another guy from Alabama who was big. And so they're hitting in the state and are hitting big on the recruiting trail. And, some of that's Alabama, but I think this coaching staff is gaining a lot of respect nationally, and it's having to kind of prove itself or make up maybe some ground in the state. But clearly they've done that a bit with a couple of priority signings the last few weeks. And I think, if there's a couple more battles they can win, we're going to be looking at another top 5 Alabama class and Kalen DeBoer, at least on paper, in terms of the recruiting talent, beginning to build, what could be in a year or two, your next Alabama powerhouse.
How many more 5-stars can Fran Brown get at Syracuse before somebody bowls him over and tries to steal him away?
Well, that's a good question, and part of that question is not necessarily related directly to Calvin Russell, but there's a financial end to that. How many 5-stars can Syracuse afford? It's been said by a few different people. I think Oklahoma's Jim Nagy recently said 5-stars want 5-star money, and that's a reality of college football in 2025. But again, this isn't all money. And Fran Brown is another one of these coaches. When he was at Georgia, we knew he was one of the best recruiters in the country, and he's forging relationships with recruits that evidently are different and are pulling people in and pulling families in and prospects in. So, are going to land a ton more 5-stars this cycle? Probably not, but I think it really is a positive indication of sort of the direction they're taking there and what Fran Brown is going to be able to do at Syracuse. And if you're a Syracuse fan, obviously a lot has to get done on the field first, but part of you starts to think even, how much longer can we hang on to Fran Brown if he's pulling in 5-star guys like that?
What is in the water in South Bend where so many former NFL players want to see their sons playing for Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish?
From one piece there, Notre Dame's always been Notre Dame, but you're right. I mean, it was Plaxico Burress' son and Jerome Bettis' son in 2025 this cycle. In the last week, they've gotten, as I mentioned before, Jermichael Finley's son, Caden Finley, is a really productive wide receiver at Aledo High School in Texas. They got Devin Fitzgerald, a big riser after his big season last fall. Thomas Davis Jr. will be there. I think you probably got to credit a lot of that to Marcus Freeman and what he's selling and the brand of Notre Dame being strong. Marcus Freeman, his role in being a young coach who clearly has captured something in the way he's presenting himself, this program, and then the success on the field. I think clearly that's resonating not only with these families and these former players, but with those kids. And, they're finding some pull there.
Eli, if someone like an Ohio State, Texas, Alabama get a 5-star player, it's because of who they are. Now that we're starting to see some of those, not that it's never happened before, but with Syracuse, with Texas Tech, BYU, why is it that it has to be about the money and not where they're going?
It's a very fair point, and in fact, I know I've contributed to that this past week in reporting, Felix Ojo's contract that he signed to go to Texas Tech. Is a fair point, and I think the way I'd turn it around only is in sort of spinning it in the college football sense of we expanded the playoff, or I say college football. We've griped for years, expanded playoffs. We want more parity. We want teams to have a chance. We don't just want it to be the same 3 teams every year. We're sort of getting towards that. I mean, we needed to translate on the field, and we've seen it in small places. But schools like Texas Tech being able to out-recruit the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texases, BYU being able to get a quarterback like Ryder Lyons, they're on their way to a historic class. Syracuse being able to do this, it's what folks have clamored for a long time. And you're right that it isn't just about the money. And certainly when they come in, it's noteworthy. And I think a lot of people's minds go straight to that. But as much as, is it fair that it is always about the money when it's there, I think we got to, sort of start accepting that can be part of the reality and has to be, and it's part of this world where perhaps we're getting towards some kind of equity in how these teams can compete.
Eli Letterman, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports.
What do you think is there a difference between Texas A&M recruiting the way that they are now and what Jimbo Fisher did or what Kevin Sumlin did and Mike Elko now?
I think, without breaking down, every single class, I would bet each of those kind of periods in the program's history, they're recruiting different kinds of kids and more importantly, bringing them into a certain kind of program. I think you talk to people about A&M at that point in the program's history. Obviously, it was sort of the early NIL years and that things were not really set up for success, that you can bring in a great class and you can spend that kind of money. But if you're not then platforming that and having a strong foundation for them to come into, it's going to go kind of like it did. And so I think with Mike Elko, you've got a coach certainly on the defensive side who is selling a particular brand of football and clearly, he's an engaging guy and they found success there. And Again, you talk to people now in College Station, and there's a feeling that they're a bit more on track. That those, again, that it's one thing to land a class, but when you bring them in and you've got those foundations in place, you're in position to potentially succeed. And so I think A&M has always recruited well. They've always had the resources to recruit well, and I think that's been consistent across each of those coaching eras. But perhaps the difference, at least comparing maybe the end of the Jimbo Fisher era to this one with Mike Elko, which we'll see how it plays out, is one that's going to be a matter of them being set up not just in recruiting, but in what they've got when they get those guys on campus.
Got one more recruiting question, and then also get to Joe Castiglione in Oklahoma. There's a portal that opened up today that's that one-time transfer. Is that the one that mainly from players who just no longer have roster spots because of the roster limitations, or is it something else?
That's largely it. It's I think I wouldn't maybe call it the loophole transfer portal window, but it is. I think maybe better. It's going to be all encompassing. I think if you are a player who in the last bunch of months either lost a spot due to some of this house settlement stuff, if you've left your program for any number of reasons, if you were not fit after landing somewhere in the portal, I think I haven't reported on this directly, but Jake Redclass, who left BYU, or is set to leave BYU at this point, he may be a player who kind of falls into that portal window, but it's brand new, it's very funky, and it's one where I don't know that it's going to be a place the programs are going to go hefty shopping. I think everybody's done, and there's really not a whole lot of high-level talent that are going to be in that kind of portal. But I think, again, as we see rev share and these roster limits hit the sport these next few years, this summer window could somehow turn into, its own kind of, transfer portal free agency. While we, have already clamored over whether we should have one or two portal windows, and now got a third.
Last one. You're a part of that. You understand the Oklahoma landscape with OU, Oklahoma State, whatever. Joe Castiglione, it's not like it's a shock, but he's going to be a AD emeritus and move on. A lot of changes in college athletics. He was the longest tenured AD in the country. Your thoughts about his legacy and also what it means?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that's been whispered around Norman really the last few years. Not that it was imminent, but that there was going to be a succession at some point, and what would that look like? When would it come? And it's coming now at a very interesting time, I think, for Oklahoma as far as the way they're going to go about this. I'll be there at his press conference tomorrow, and we'll probably get more details then. But him hanging on through the end of the year, the hiring process to follow, who they go after. But you also consider that they're going into a football season where the future of the head coach, Brent Venables, is not settled, and how will that play into things in terms of a hire or Brent Venables' future and everything that goes into this season. But as far as Joe Castiglione, I think you're not only talking about a legendary figure in Oklahoma athletics history and everything he's done there, from some of the biggest hires in school history, Bob Stoops, Patty Gasso, even the women's gymnastics program, which is its own powerhouse, KJ Kimbler there, but getting OU into the SEC, I mean, that will be a huge piece of it, setting them up for the future. And then really the fact that even from a national perspective today, I think if I'd called you guys this morning, or if you called me before the news broke and said, who are some of the most prominent, important ADs in the country, I would have said Joe Castiglione, and he did that from Norman, Oklahoma, which it's not an outpost. And obviously, Oklahoma historically is one of those big blue blood programs, but the respect he carried throughout the business and across the country and sort of that administrative landscape in college athletics, I think that's really going to be a big part of his legacy.
Eli, thank you, man. Appreciate your time. Eli Letterman, lead college football recruiting analyst, covering high school football and more for ESPN.com. When we come back, Jason Caldwell, he covers Auburn. I saw a couple of podcasts about Auburn football recruiting. There seems to be concerns. Hugh Freeze, of course, and the Tigers open up against Baylor on the road. Who are they? Where are they? What are the expectations? Because Auburn, and by the way, this was one of the tweets, the Auburn football program is having recruiting issues that some are blaming on its coach, Hugh Freeze, playing too much golf. Believe it or not, today, there's a picture underneath, like, I guess you could say, an awning outside of a hotel with Freeze and a few others holding this big, huge trophy because they won some sort of like Ryder Cup event for their country club. So that'll be fun to talk to Jason Caldwell, but also who is Auburn? What are the expectations? That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
.365 Sports on this Monday, July the 7th. Tomorrow we'll be bright and early at Big 12 Media Days in Frisco at the Star, where the Cowboys have their headquarters. Looking forward to a couple of days of that. Jason Caldwell joins us, 247 Sports, covering the Auburn Tigers, and he joins us on 365 Sports. So obviously we know they open up on the last, Friday night against Baylor to open up the year. Jason, thanks for your time. What are the expectations for Hugh Freeze and Auburn this year?
Yeah, I think the expectations are that this is a team that you should see take some strides in year 3. Hugh Freeze took over an Auburn program that had been pretty decimated. A couple of coaching changes, lack of recruiting, especially on the offensive line, had really hurt the roster a whole lot. And so really year 1 was just trying to survive. Year 2 last year, they had some young guys, some transfers, and they were a couple of plays away from probably should have been a 7, maybe 8-win team. Of course, you have a couple of those where you could have lost some games too, but I think you look now in year 3 for them, it feels like a roster that's set up to be, give you a better product than maybe they had in year 1 and year 2.
What do you think of Jackson Arnold and him fitting into that system? He didn't seem to fit in Oklahoma. Of course, they had a lot of other issues, but what is it about his skill set that works with Hugh Freeze's offense? Because quarterback has been the black hole so far in his first 2 years.
Yeah, and part of that I think has been a combination of things. Year 1, wide receiver group just wasn't very good, and so you had that along with an offensive line that was just kind of a patchwork group, and that was a tough going for Peyton Thorne. Last year, you added a couple of receivers, but offensive line-wise, still wasn't great. And so, but, I think you look at Jackson Arnold, and I think it's decision-making and quick decision making is the thing I think they're looking for. I think the anticipating throws and kind of feeling out those kind of things. I think that's what they were most excited about in the spring. So I think that's part of it. He's a guy that can run. Seen him make plays with his legs at times. I don't think they're counting on him to be 1,000-yard rusher, but I think they're counting on him to be able to be a guy that can make some plays with his legs. But I think this is about getting the ball in the hands of the wide receiver group that I think has a chance to be one of the best in the country. When you look at, obviously Cam Coleman coming back and Malcolm Simmons, and then you add in Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech and some young guys that have a chance to take a step forward. I think this is a group that has a legitimate chance to be special. And so if Jackson Arnold's a guy that can get him the football, then I think you start talking about an offense that has a chance to do some pretty good things.
Jason, we're still 6 weeks away, so it's kind of too early to start getting too revved up now. But what's kind of the early chatter and anticipation of that first week, that trip to Waco to take on Dave Aranda and the Baylor Bears?
I honestly think like most people now, there's so much unknown because rosters are so different. 15 years ago, you'd had a pretty good idea what both teams were going to be like based on who was returning and who you signed. Now, because of the portal, because of newcomers, because it's hard to really get a feel for teams, especially early in the year. I think you look at it, you know what you got. You know you're going to have face one of the best quarterbacks you're going to see all year. So I think that's part of it. Dave Aranda's a defensive guy, so he'll be kind of amped up for this game too. So I think you look, and I think for folks, they've really had a pretty good turnout for these road games. Some of these places that you don't get to see very much, and so I think for Auburn folks, this is going to be. There's usually a game where you go, hey, pick a road trip to go to. I think Baylor's going to be one of the opportunities to do that. Now, moving it to Friday night has an impact. I think it's going to impact this game in terms of travel for some folks, but I still think this is going to be a game that people are going to be excited about.
Jason, I try to keep up a little bit with Auburn, like everybody in college football, but I saw a couple of notes about the recruiting seems to be lagging behind right now. I'm not sure if that's the case because I don't follow Auburn recruiting that heavily, but is it?
Yeah. From a number standpoint, Auburn's in the 80s right now, which is not where you would expect them to be. And they have kind of approached things a little differently than some folks. Obviously, being in Texas, a school like Texas Tech has approached things a little differently. They're still going out and hammering down on the NIL side of things and doing some of that stuff. Auburn has gone and said, look, here's what we believe this thing's going to work, the revenue sharing side of things. Here's your budget. You got to have legitimate NIL deals to go along with that. And so they're not spending a ton of money on a recruiting class at the moment. Come August 1st, when these deals have to be made official, will that change? And if it does, will it change things for Auburn? Probably a little bit. I think as much as anything right now, you go in year 3, if you go out and win games and you show that, hey, what we've been telling you for 2 years is what we're going to put on the field, then I think it helps a little in recruiting as well. But this is a roster that is really heavy freshmen and sophomores. So this was always going to be a smaller class. I think the last time I counted, there were 13 seniors that are scholarship guys on this roster. Now you have some juniors that'll be draft eligible guys, but you're talking about probably only losing 15, 16 guys off a roster this year. Now you have some transfers. So this is going to be a smaller class anyway, but Auburn is playing it conservative with the unknown of the revenue sharing and some of that stuff. And right now it's not paying off, for them at the moment.
I saw, and of course, this is probably one of those Alabama hit pieces, but fan kind of things. How much golf does Hugh Freeze play?
He plays a pretty good bit, but he doesn't do anything else. There's a lot of coaches that go to the beach and go to the lake and do all that stuff. He chooses to play golf, and so in the end, it's one of those things where I don't know that I ever saw a story written about Steve Spurrier. He won a bunch of games, and he played as much golf as any football coach probably in the history of this sport. Yeah, it didn't matter because he won a bunch of games, and so they'll be the same thing here. If Hugh Freeze wins 10 games this year, everybody's going to say, hey, that's a pretty good idea to go play golf and to get away for a little while. If you don't, then people are going to go, well, you played too much golf. So it'll show up whether you win games or not. But, the thing is that, there's a time to get away in the springtime now because head coaches, you're not allowed evaluation periods anymore. And so there's a lot of dead times for these guys only a certain amount of practices you have for the spring. And so for him, his getaway is to go to the golf course and play. And he plays some, but again, there's probably a bunch of coaches that do a whole lot of other things outside the office as well.
I saw, in fact, it was funny that Paul brought that up because today, I believe, I'm not sure who put it up there, maybe Hugh Freeze, Lane Kiffin responded. It was out in front of like a country club entrance with a big trophy that he and 6 or 7 other guys just won some kind of Ryder Cup format. But that's just one of those. I think people take it a little bit of a pot shot. Back to Jackson Arnold. If he's not the answer, what's next?
Yeah, they brought in a couple of really talented newcomers as well. Deuce Knight is one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and I know I'm going to say this, and there'll be some folks in the state of Texas that probably fall over, but he really reminds me a lot of Vince Young in terms of his body style, the way he moves, and he's a left-hander, but he has some of those qualities, and so that's a guy that's kind of waiting in the wings as a true freshman. And Ashton Daniels is a transfer from Stanford that started for them the last couple of years and comes in as a guy that can really run, big athletic guy. And so they've got some options there, but obviously Jackson Arnold, I think, is the guy that you look at coming out of the spring that you feel like, hey, that's the guy that will probably have the keys to this. Now, I think he still has to go out and show it in the preseason, but you look at it and all the things you want to do in this, because of your wide receivers, because of things you do, the passing game has to be a really big part of things for this team to be successful.
How much is there legit pressure on Hugh Freeze for this year? Do you think that is legit, or is that maybe historical? The Auburn elites are a little less patient than most.
Yeah, I don't know that Auburn's any less patient than anybody else is nowadays. Yeah. You spend money and you go and make coaching changes. It's funny because, outside of 2 guys, Alabama's changed coaches a lot more than Auburn has. But when one of them's Bear Bryant and when one of them's Nick Saban, you don't have to change very often. And so I think you look at it, and I think it's natural now when you make money and when there's money being spent. The expectations are that you need to go out and win. The problem is that it's never been more difficult in any sport than right now to win in the Southeastern Conference. When you look at, you bring in, Texas and Oklahoma, and you already brought in Texas A&M and these others. You look at this league right now, and no matter what sport you suit up in, it's about as difficult as it gets. And so when you look at Auburn too, when you throw in that your 2 natural rivals are Alabama and Georgia, that means you're in a pretty tough spot because, you look at this country in the last 15 years in college football, and you got Ohio State you throw in there and a couple other schools that are in the mix, but Alabama and Georgia have been the 2 most successful teams that you've had, and Auburn's had to play those every year and will forever unless something really drastically changes. And so because of that makes this year a little different for me because you get both of them at home. And so this is the year you think about if you're going to make some hay, you need to beat one of those teams and you get both of them at home.
Is that also a reason, I don't know what Freeze's stance is, or Auburn fans of the school, about not adding a 9th conference game? Because they're 2 every year. They're playing Alabama, Georgia, where some every year might be Mississippi State, South Carolina. And I know South Carolina's on the up, but they just happen to have the wrong algorithm.
Yeah, it definitely has an impact. And that's the thing, scheduling, because when you get 16 team scheduling is going to have such a dramatic impact on a season anyway. And so you look at it and if it's one of those years where you run into having Georgia and Alabama already on the schedule and say you look up and you got Florida, Tennessee, or Florida and LSU as your others, then you start talking about, the schedule difficulty. I think, for Auburn, they're like, hey, we're willing to do whatever we need to do. They schedule some non-conference games, obviously Baylor and some of these other ones. I think it really is going to come down to how this playoff thing starts to work in the future. And if you look up and you go, hey, you can have a 3rd loss or maybe a 4th loss and still make the playoffs, but that extra data point really matters. And I think we're going to see this league expand somewhat, but it may be this play-in game at the end of the year instead of a natural SEC championship game or something. But I think you'll see pretty much, at least the top teams try to get to that 9th game.
Can you try to describe what an Auburn booster donor is actually like and how, impatient they can actually be?
They're no different than anybody else. It's the biggest overblown thing in the history of the world.
Okay, good answer. Go ahead.
It is. It is. They've become this. it's become this cliche thing. It's not any different. They're all, when people give money, they get impatient when their money, it doesn't look like it works out. There's probably never been a time where Auburn boosters and donors have had less impact on a program than they did 40 years ago. It was probably much more. Now it's not nearly as much. And so, yeah, I don't, that's one of those things that has been a cliche thing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this for 27 years. They're not in, I see these people all over the league and all over the country. They're no different than anybody else.
Glad I asked then. I'm glad I asked. That's good.
Did it get maybe kicked into overdrive because the Brian Harsin thing was so abrupt and so kind of wild?
Yeah, well, it may have from a national perspective, but
yeah.
If you had boots on the ground and you saw what didn't happen, I mean, they weren't recruiting. And this is a different scenario, but they've recruited 2 really good classes the first couple of years. They weren't recruiting. He wasn't recruiting. And you knew that along with that, the fact that people were leaving the team, they had zero chance to win in the future. None. The roster that Hugh Freeze took over had one legitimate offensive tackle on the roster, and he's since transferred out because he just wasn't going to be good enough to play at this level. They did not recruit guys, and people saw that and went, look, I don't care what happens moving forward. You can coach football. You may be a good football coach, but when you don't recruit it in this league, you die. And I think people saw it for what it was and said, look, if we don't do something pretty quickly, then you're going to be 10 to 15 years before you have a team again.
Yeah, that's kind of like everybody says there's a Bigfoot, like, and then all of a sudden, like, somebody shows you the blurry photo, and you're like, well, okay, I guess there is.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
Probably what kicked into that, yeah.
Yeah, no, there were signs and signs and signs, and you go, look, I don't need to see anything else. And I think the people saw it and went, yeah, that's not going to work at this level. And, it was unfortunate because that's the problem with the whole scenario, in my opinion, is that you had 2 years that basically you're like, 2 years of kind of flatlining. Well, when you flatline 2 years in the Southeastern Conference, then that really sets you back 4 or 5 or 6 years. And that's what Auburn has had the last couple of years.
How is and what is, you mentioned this could be one of the better travel games for Auburn other than their normal rivalries and teams they play in the SEC. But it is a Friday. You mentioned that could hurt the travel. What is the, I'm not saying anticipation, but Baylor, they finished strong last year. They had a horrible couple of years, but they did win the Sugar Bowl and beat Ole Miss at 21. They've been in and out, but finished strongly, and they're pretty talented, this team this year.
Yeah, no, I think people have those expectations and know this is going to be a difficult game. You look at not only what they did last year, but I mentioned quarterback coming back. You look at preseason and the Big 12, and Baylor's right there with a couple other teams as being preseason favorites. So I think people know how difficult this start is going to be for Auburn, and it kind of feels like Auburn is on a Big 12 road swing to open the season because out of the first 5 weeks of the season, Auburn has road trips to Baylor, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. So you feel like this is as Big 12 as it's going to ever get for an Auburn football team, but that's what they have to do. So there's, we got 3 road trips this year that'll be out in that direction, and back-to-back weeks at Oklahoma and Texas A&M later in the year. So I think difficult start, but I think for Auburn folks and I think people look at this game, you realize that this is going to be a team that knows from a Baylor standpoint, you get to play Auburn, you get to play an SEC team a Friday night. That's a big boost game when you start talking about dreams of maybe trying to make a playoff. And I think Auburn's in the same boat.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. The knowledge, the insight, the experiences. He even used that term, boots on the ground. He's there in Auburn, Alabama. The Tigers and Hugh Freeze, year 3 for him. When we come back, we're going to look at a note that I saw in a story from theathletic.com on the American Athletic Conference and the football coaches who have had success in that conference and what happens when they do. That's next. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, General Manager and CEO is Ted Teague. Back in 2020, when my Tahoe that I had owned for it was over 20 years, maybe 20 years, it just finally gave up. It went into a car heaven. It 400 and whatever thousand miles. It was just something that duct tape here, the engine started. It never was just something simple. It was always something that was $300 or $400 or $800 to fix it. I love that car, but it was time to move on. And so I bought a pre-owned car at Allen Samuels. AJ was the sales manager or sales rep at the time. David Gray, the sales manager now. Ted Teague, still the GM and CEO. And I had the best experience. There's always a little bit of nervous energy when you buy something that's pre-owned, but I just felt good about this one. And the car has been fantastic. I had one engine issue, and that was, well, because of something that Ford had done inside of the car that had to replace, and they took care of the cost. It's been a great car. Pre-owned cars are fantastic. If you don't want to jump all in on something brand new, there are many discounts and incentives right now at Allen Samuels when it comes to what they have. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. But the pre-owned lot is fantastic and loaded for you too. At Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved, learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Reading an article in theathletic.com, it was, I think, Chris Vanini on the American Athletic Football Conference, of course, the American Athletic Conference of Football. Here is one note that out of the article about coaches, and they've got some good ones. Other than Jeff Monken, who's the reigning champion of the American Athletic Conference, of course, Army did finish the regular season, got thumped by Navy, but they were really good. Other than reigning champion Army's Jeff Monken, every head coach who has ever won an AAC title has soon wound up in a power conference job. Here are the names of those coaches who won a conference title. Do we have the graphic?
No, we don't have a graphic for this.
Matt Rule, Temple to Baylor, now, of course, in Nebraska. Scott Frost, UCF to Nebraska, and now back at UCF. Josh Heupel was at UCF and then Tennessee. Mike Norvell was at Memphis and then Florida State. Luke Fickell, Cincinnati to Wisconsin. Willie Fritz from
Tulane to Houston.
And Rhett Lashley now at SMU. Everybody that's won an AAC or football championship as a coach, and those are the ones that have all used that. And I don't want to say stepping stone because that sometimes can be demeaning, but those are the ones. Monken and Army seem to be a great fit. I don't know if he's going anywhere anytime soon.
No, that's one of those jobs that guys stay for a while. Like Ken Niumatalolo, was there forever. Jeff Monken's been there for a long time. I think because of the style of that job and how rewarding it seems to be, that's not one that you go look in. To get Jeff Monken, you'd probably have to kind of come with it, don't you think? I mean, Troy Calhoun's been in Air Force for, since Fisher to Barry. I mean, they've had two coaches in, I know it's not my lifetime, but pretty much my whole life. So, but yeah, if you're at one of those places and you show that you can win, especially when you can go and do things, Tom Herman's in there too, right? You mentioned Tom Herman.
No.
I mean, he was at Houston now. He's not anywhere now, but like, you go and win a big bowl game against a power conference team. Well, now that, that's where you're going to be your stepping stone. I think Ryan Silverfield is probably one of the next ones from that conference that'll jump up and get a job. So I mentioned if Arkansas is open, that's one I think that he'll get at least considered for. So yeah, it's a great proving ground for coaches, and they play a good brand of football there. And the schools have been pretty good about hiring the smart guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really surprising to see guys have success and go up a level. I mean, I think, but yeah, that's a string of coaches that have all done well for themselves and obviously got rewarded for it. But yeah, I mean, you win at the minor league level in AAA often enough, then Major League Baseball could come calling, kind of a deal. So yeah, I mean, those are all coaches who are bound to move up at some point or another with or without the championship. But it looks good on the American brochure, certainly to kind of brag about that a little bit, although you're bragging about guys who are no longer there. So there's that part of it. But I think Monken's in a unique spot. He doesn't have to deal with NIL. He's got a unique offense that's not going to necessarily work everywhere if you just go plug it into a conference and say, here you go. It's got, as far as a job, it's got its eccentricities that you're not going to find a lot of other places that are probably appealing to a lot of people, that you're not dealing with worrying about what Texas Tech's doing in NIL, and you're not worried about, some of the more minutia type things that you have to worry about at other schools that are within leagues that are, at more common college football. So yeah, I think he's in a unique spot with a unique position in an era of college football that's more unique than it's ever been. So I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed where he was and was happy there for the long haul.
So you mentioned Silverfield, right? Trailer could be the next. If it depends on what they do and also what other jobs become available. Sumrall from Tulane obviously is a name that is a very hot name. So those are just more that might be a part of that. But that's a pretty good list with Rule. Now, they haven't all had success. Rule did that second year, was okay, took Baylor to a bowl game, and then they won 10 games. Frost failed badly in Lincoln. And then Heupel has done well at Tennessee, Norvell, FSU. Fickell is still kind of remains to be seen. I don't think he's on any kind of hot seat, but I think people expected that to Wisconsin to kind of just carry on, and that has not been the case. Fritz, see what happens with Houston, and Rhett Lashley's done a great job at SMU.
Well, he tried to change the offensive system, and they didn't really have. You haven't quite hit there yet on consistent quarterback play. Tanner Mordecai was a great pickup for them, but he was injured. A lot, and so that hurt them. But they since in his first couple of years, they just really haven't hit. Now they're kind of going back to what made Wisconsin back in the day, maybe more of an old school Big Ten offense, or at least some kind of hybrid to it. Phil Longo's at Sam Houston State now, so we'll see. But I do think that there's a little heat around him. Of course, he also stepped into a Wisconsin job that's different, just like every other Big Ten job is as soon as you stepped in, there's, all these new teams in there that they have to play that are different. They're like, okay, it's hard enough to worry about Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, and all that every year, but now you got to throw in Oregon and Washington and all that into the mix too. It makes it harder.
Joe Castiglione, we brought this up with Eli Letterman, but we didn't go quite through that story during the headlines because of time, is going to retire his full-time role during the upcoming school year. I have reached out with a couple of guys that cover Oklahoma that they feel like he'll finish 26-20 or 25-26 the year. Longest tenured run for a current AD in major college sports. Upon hiring a successor, he will stay on as the AD emeritus. So who are some of the favorites? That doesn't mean that these will be the ones they reach out to, but I saw a couple of different notes. One, I saw Michael Alford, Florida State. Paul will help pay for his trip. Zach Selman, the great lineage of the Selman brothers who have statues at Oklahoma. Zach Selman, longtime Oklahoma Stafford, now the AD at Mississippi State. There's Kirby Hocutt, who has ties with Oklahoma. He's from Sherman, Texas. He was, by the way, on the Kansas State football team when Brent Venables was there. Hocutt was on OU's staff in '99 as an associate athletics director for external operations, sports administration, and was in fundraising there. Just a name. And then also Ren Baker, West Virginia. His name also as a part of it. Of course, remember now, he hired former Oklahoma player and coach Seth Luttrell at North Texas, and then now is at West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Selman's like the cool, hip choice, young guy. He's like 40 years old, over at Mississippi State, Dewey's son. So there's history there. Went to Oklahoma himself, was born in Norman. So he's a guy that makes a lot of sense for all the reasons that I just mentioned, the connections that he has. I don't know how his overall time at Mississippi State is viewed because I'm just not in that circle, swimming in that pool and knowing kind of how that is. I really only notice football, and quite frankly, it's not great with Jeff Lebby right now, but I know they had a lot to try and rebuild and whatnot. So despite that, I think that Zach Selman's a name you're going to hear a lot about. Ren Baker makes a ton of sense. I mean, he does, and I saw some West Virginia fans earlier in the day that were starting to prepare themselves for the idea that he could be at least talked to, certainly, and very well could be a strong candidate. And they love Ren Baker from all indications out in Morgantown. So that would be a blow if it were to come to that. And that would be an appealing job. I mean, to get back to a place you know so well, and also back where you've spent a lot of your time here in the middle of the country. But that remains to be seen. Those are two, though. Kirby Hocutt, I find it hard to imagine him making the move now of all times to leave Texas Tech. But who knows what people's individual motivations are and their dreams are and all of that. But it just doesn't seem like it'd be the best time to try and poach him from Lubbock. And then who was the other one you mentioned? There was one other, I think, maybe.
Kirby Hocutt, Ren Baker, Zach Selman, Michael Alford from Florida State.
Yeah, I don't know about Michael Alford.
He was an assistant AD at Oklahoma for 6 years before he took a job after he had been with the Dallas Cowboys.
He can politic his way into a lot of things, but I would think that Ren Baker makes a lot of sense to me. I don't think Michael Alford makes a lot of sense to them, but who knows?
There's one other name, Craig, Marcus Bowman. He's been a part of Oklahoma's staff since 2020, serving now as their deputy athletics for business development and revenue generation.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's throwing names out. So, a guy who's been there, in-house candidate, there's always going to be one of those as well. And I won't pretend to know the scene all that well as far as Marcus or, who's better candidate or this or that. There's just some that obviously makes some sense that they'll reach out to and talk to, but it's definitely the end of an era. I mean, Joe Castiglione's been there for forever, for some people's entire lives. People who are grown up and have families now, he's been the AD that entire time. And I think the reaction has been very interesting. I see a lot of Oklahoma fans that are like, thank God, finally. And I'm going like, really? Like, been pretty successful. I mean, when you think about it, he's been pretty damn successful, got him into the SEC, here as of late. I mean, if you're just looking for recent things, and there's a lot more than just that, but there's also the drought of a football national title hanging over his head. But I don't know that changing athletic directors changes that. So if you think it's a Joe C curse, then by all means, I guess go with that line of thinking. But I don't know. I think it's bigger than just who the AD has been. So I think there's some people that feel like a shakeup is needed, and it's about time for one. And this is going to be a good thing. And then there's some who obviously realize how long the guy's been there and all he's been involved with. And I mean, you don't just lose a guy like that and just keep on moving along. So like, you could very well, if you want to, look at this and go, there's another crack in Oklahoma's armor. They've already started to show some. Here's another one, because there's no way they're going to hire an AD as successful as he is. And I don't know that that's true, but you can definitely think that if you want to for right now, until proven otherwise, which is going to take several years. So yeah, if there's some that believe there's a little blood in the water and a little bit more just was added in today with Castiglione leaving, or they see it as a sign of Oklahoma and where they are. I think it's probably going a bit too far to look at it too big picture that way, but it is interesting timing, and it is a very interesting time for Oklahoma athletics right now. That's for sure.
Well, yeah. By the way, he's the son, and Craig brought this up, of Dewey. Lucius Leroy and Dewey Selman, what they did in the mid-'70s for Oklahoma, winning 2 national titles, All-Americans, all of them. He sometimes was the one that was overlooked, but he was the first All-American among the 3.
Yeah. Look, where I would be nervous with Oklahoma is, look, your biggest rival, had a guy on the. I mean, the DeLoss Dodds was as hard to replace as anybody. I would tell you that until just now with Chris Del Conte, they don't have anybody who can kind of play in that same league as DeLoss Dodds. They went through some people there, including some really bad ones, and a longtime interim guy, because they were trying to figure out, who could really run the program up to the standard that had been set by DeLoss Dodds. I don't know if that'll happen now in college football, because this is such an attractive job, but also Oklahoma fans, the staff, all that have an expectation of this is how this job works, because this guy set a standard and he was one of the best in it. So sometimes you lose a guy who is, an all-time great at being an AD, Joe Castiglione, all-time great. So it's hard to just go, all right, well, let's get this other guy in here and he'll just keep going, because the reason that he was able to be so successful in that job, it was not because of politics or whatever. He's just damn good at it. He's one of the best in the country, and he navigated a lot of things there. So it's going to be tough to replace him no matter what. So that my fear would be going through all that.
They got to win, and they have won in a lot of sports. But the football team, that's where it all no matter what all the other things they do, whether they're really good in golf, which they are, or baseball, and of course great in softball, except this last year they finally got knocked off after this dynasty. The basketball's been okay. Porter Moser's not been quite as, I think, dynamic as everyone thought, but they have to not just win. They won in football, but that's a long drought of over 20 years, 25 almost now, since they won with Bob Stoops. I wonder if Stoops I don't think he would be interested in that at all.
No, he's too old at this point. I mean, he's not going to come back to college football and deal with all this crap. I mean, hell no, man. Have you seen him lately? He's like enjoying retirement and has been for years now. He loves selling his alcohol.
Coaching too. He's doing a little coaching with that.
Yeah, but it's not like he has to go and recruit. He has no interest in that job, but I would assume. But
General Ursus, who's a Tennessee fan, said, listen, losing a good AD can be tough. When Doug Dickey retired at Tennessee, it took Tennessee nearly 20 years to get Danny White.
Yeah, I mean, and Paul kind of brought it up with Texas. I mean, there's a lot of Oklahoma fans taking a victory lap because they just haven't seen a football national title. Meanwhile, how many softball national titles have you seen? I know they're not the same thing, but for those that want to crack on, well, basketball's been blah, and football can't win the big one. And it's like, well, it's not like there's not winning at all going on, but I get it that it's not in the 2 biggest brands to the level that you want it to be. And so there's some thought that if you change this guy, then magically the next guy is going to put football in the national title game. And this time, unlike the 5 previous tries, they're going to win those games. I mean, that's all you can do is hope. And so with changeover, there's a lot of hope, but it absolutely can go the other direction, to his point. And it could be the Steve Patterson hire. And it's a total goof who has no idea what he's really doing. And makes you look like a total embarrassment. And that's what Texas had there for a couple of years until finally getting their guy. And so, yeah, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the right guy with this next hire. You just better hope that you do, because if not, it's not like the program's going to shut down. But, I mean, you wonder how much ground they can possibly lose to Texas in a short amount of a time, as they already have lost some ground to them. So, yeah, and not only that, but while you do worry about Texas, you still now also have to worry about Alabama and Georgia and Florida and LSU and all these other schools that are in the same pool with you now. So, yeah, it's a very critical hire at a critical time for Oklahoma. They appear to have some good candidates, but, yeah, there's not a sure thing, and this is going to be very interesting to see who they go and grab.
So our good friend Jason Shear covers Arizona. I know we got some of the over-unders on win totals for the Power 4 schools, plus Notre Dame here in just a minute. Jason Shear on Twitter, the Big 12 can't stop me. Here's my preseason poll. Clark Williams, who works, of course, in the upper management of the Big 12, arrest him. Arrest this man. So that was interesting to see.
Here's the thing.
He's got Kansas State at the top.
That's just one guy, though. When we all get together, it's when it gets bad.
Collusion.
Yeah.
No, it's just rebellious. He's always been kind of rebellious. Jason's a rebellious guy.
No, but look, Ari made a good point earlier on why the poll's not there, is that these things get kind of thrown into the committee. So it might be maybe a smart thing to take a.
Why? Why would it be thrown into the committee?
Because they don't know what they don't know. And they're looking at any kind of thing. And again, it's hard to recreate.
If this was any other conference, Paul, excuse me, and it was topsy-turvy, it would be talked about at such great depth within the conference that you just never know.
Well, I mean, it's been talked about quite a bit, the fact that there's not a preseason poll. I mean, we spent a week and a half talking about the fact there's not one. I, meanwhile, have not heard anybody complaining about the Big Ten doesn't have a preseason poll. No. Did y'all know that even? Did you know the Big Ten doesn't have a preseason poll?
Sometimes we don't even know when they're meeting.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing is it's fun to throw out there if you want to, but I mean there's real justification that you can see from their point of view of why they're going a different direction, and some of it's just the media can't possibly nail it down the way that they need to make it look a little better. I guess I don't know, but yeah, last year's was bad. Nobody can argue that. I'll just continue to say, and I'm not trying to defend it, but I mean, it's 8 schools in 2 years that are brand new. Absolutely. And 4 from a different power conference on the other side of the country that you're now mixing with all of these similar teams. And it's hard to do in that league. And so it can turn into a situation like last year that was probably not the best situation for the league overall, where people who aren't paying close attention see Arizona State ranked at the back, like, oh, that league must suck if the 16th team is running up and winning it. Or nobody had respect for BYU until it was too late to have respect for them, and they'd already basically been talked out of playoff contention. And, they didn't help themselves at the end either. But, yeah, I mean, I believe when I last looked, the Big Ten doesn't do one. So it's not unique in that way. But I like that people are having fun with it like Jason, and I'm sure there will be plenty of others that put theirs out. So take that for what it's worth. I will also say on the Castiglione thing, I don't know that was very good news for Brent Venables today, that the athletic director's changing over. No. So if you had already a hot seat underneath his underneath him, I guess, heading into this season, or a hot seat that he was sitting on, I think it got a couple degrees hotter with the change at athletic director, because when there's a change at athletic director, more often than not, there's a change at football coach and various other coaching positions shortly thereafter. So big year for Oklahoma, and now even more uncertainty at a time where there's been a lot of uncertainty.
By the way, do you guys know last year's preseason SEC poll who was picked dead last?
Dead last would probably be Kentucky or Vanderbilt.
Kentucky was 10th or 11th. Vanderbilt dead last, and it was 400 votes below Mississippi State, who was the next to the last. South Carolina was picked 13th. You never heard that, though. You never really heard that. It was good stories for South Carolina and Vanderbilt. So there's just a way that things can be twisted just a little bit or looked at just a little bit. Florida, 11th. Remember, there was a train wreck. Was Napier going to make it through the year? So there's 3 teams that were picked in the bottom 5 of the SEC that all made a bowl game, and South Carolina was on the outside, at least with some discussion about the college football playoffs. So just a note there. I just happened to look that up.
I think the thing I hate most about the Big 12 getting rid of preseason polls, that we've talked about the preseason poll more than we ever would have otherwise, because now it's like, well, like having to defend it or something. Like, I do not care, but I do think it is easy when you go, all right, not who, but in what order are we putting Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and then insert your two others, and that's where you start. In the Big 12, good luck. Is it BYU? Is it Arizona State? Is it Baylor? Is it TCU? Is it Texas Tech? Like, that's the difference, is there's not Oklahoma and Texas right there at the top. And you know what? Oklahoma was usually pretty dead on. Texas a lot of times was overrated.
They were the ones that poll. More often than not. Yeah.
So, that thing's never been exact, but it's even harder now to do. And I'm glad that we'll have some more stuff to chew on out of that league rather than the preseason poll talk starting tomorrow.
We're going to come back in a minute with the 4 power conferences and, again, the terms of that. And what does Circa Sports, what do they have, everybody, when it comes? We'll show you the list of all the 4 conferences, of the wins and losses, over, under. By the way, Jason's top 5, just to let you know, Kansas State, Utah, so he has them bouncing back big time. Texas
They're the
Tech,
trendy pick now this year, them and Tech.
Texas Tech 3rd, Arizona State, the defending champion, Baylor at number 5, and then the other ones you'd expect in that next, Iowa State, TCU, and also Kansas. He's got West Virginia and Rod at the bottom, which means they'll win the Big 12. When we come back, what does Circa Sports think about over-under wins for the 4 major conferences, plus Notre Dame attached in a way, of course, with the ACC? This is 365 Sports. Ideal, MRI.com. They are a business in Waco, just off I-35 in the Central Texas marketplace, and it's worth a drive, even if you're in Houston or Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, or San Antonio. Unless you can find some other place like them, they have a state-of-the-art imaging machine. They will never charge you more than $400. I say never. I don't know what's going to happen 5 or 20 years from now. They will not charge you more than $497 every single trip to have an MRI. I've been in the machine. I've never paid more than $497. Now that I'm on Medicare, it's different because of all the benefits that I have, thank goodness, from paying into the system for so long. However, if you come in from Houston and you have to pay $1,100, $1,200, $1,500, the average MRI is $1,100, is that not worth a tank of gas to come in and have whatever ails you, whatever injury you have, to make sure you get the right evidence and only pay $497? It's worth it. Wherever you live, if it's worth it to find out what you need, yes. What you need is a diagnosis from your doctor, yes. And then on top of that, help your wallet, checkbook, your budget, your bank account at idealmri.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund. Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
All right, here we go. Brett McMurphy does a great job of putting out information of what Circa Sports has. He, of course, now a part of On3, joined us last week. Here are the win totals estimated by Circa Sports. And, of course, I don't know if you heard, but this year you can win a half a game. So Arizona State, Kansas State, and Texas Tech all at 8.5 wins. And then 7.5, you can see the list, Baylor, Iowa State, Utah, Kansas. So they have 12 teams, according to Circa Sports, would be bowl eligible. The ones that would not be Arizona, Oklahoma State, UCF, and West Virginia. And those last 2 schools with new coaches, Scott Frost and Rich Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'll let's see. Just rapid fire here. I'll take the over on the top. Let's see. Tech. I'll take the over on the top 2. I think they'll do well. I think Tech will. It's just it's so hard for me to buy on Tech when they start famously so slow.
Do they have an awful non-conference schedule? They're going to be 3 and Oregon State. But this is Oregon State now 2 years removed from being in a power league. So, what toll has that taken at this point on them? I can't imagine they're at same exact talent level across the board. Perhaps they are, but, I just don't view that as exactly the same thing as it would have been if it's the old Pac-12 Oregon State, So, beyond that, though, they play Kennesaw State, who is atrocious. And the other game is –
they play Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Kent State. Kent State's one of the worst teams, if not the worst, at least.
Yeah, I said Kennesaw, but I meant Kent State. So Kent State and Arkansas, Pine Bluff.
And then a home
They'll
game.
Win those games 250-14. Yeah. So that's not even going to test them. Oregon State could, but yeah, they should be right there in the mix for winning 9-10 games. So this is Vegas, so why is there not more separation at the top? I thought it was easy to pick this league. Why is it everybody's 8.5 or under? Because they don't know what the hell is to be expected with this league either, and they're the actual experts.
Yeah, they know what we may not even know, and we know, I think, quite a bit, although not always the smartest.
But to not have a single team above 8.5 wins means that they're not too confident in saying that anybody's that much better than anybody else, or anybody's going to be that great to begin with. And I think we can all agree there that there's maybe not a blue blood playoff. I guess just no doubter, but there's a handful of schools that you feel could be in that position. So, I think this just speaks to the toughness of trying to pick it, is the fact that Vegas can't really pick it. There's 3.5 games that separate the top and the bottom.
Yep, 16 teams and 3.5 games separation.
So, yeah, I'm just saying that I think only reinforces that it's tough. It's not just it's the same as picking any other league. But, I think – man, there's every team to me, because of follow the league, is actually of interest. I know it's not for everybody though, but man, it's been interesting seeing West Virginia at the bottom of every poll I see now when it comes to the Big 12. And I don't know, I feel like they could be a surprise, because I think Rich Rod's a hell of a coach. I think there's a lot of belief there. Now, maybe the talent's not quite where it needs to be, but I could see West Virginia not finishing in the bottom. In fact, I think I'd have them above UCF if I had my way, actually. UCF's the team I'm the least confident about of everybody in the league this year. I just don't have a lot of reasons to believe in them overall, and especially versus most of the other leagues, other teams in the league. Now, if you want to say, well, they'll be better than Oklahoma State, okay, or West Virginia, you can make that argument. But, UCF for me is the hardest to, really pinpoint how good or bad they might actually be.
Out of all the conferences, the least room change, I guess, from top wins to low wins is this one by far. You'll see the other ones here with just 3.5 from West Virginia compared to those 3 schools at 8.5. 12 teams, according to Circa Sports, would end up being bowl eligible.
Look, I buy that.
Well, if they meet their win total.
Yeah, exactly. But I buy that. I think that that's about the right number. And when you get into Baylor, I mean, I won't know everything I need to know about Baylor and Auburn after that first game, but I'll know a lot more than normal, because it'll kind of show you where they are early on. And, because both those teams should be, I think Baylor should be pretty good, as is Vegas. And I think Auburn should be better. That'll be an interesting one on that Friday night to see. But when you start getting past Utah and Kansas, to me, that's where it gets really nebulous and hard. I think they've got TCU a little too low.
I do too. Sure. I think TCU is 6.5 is a little low. Yeah.
Maybe I'm just stupid, but I think Arizona State will be over, although need to take a closer look at the schedules. I think K-State will definitely be over. I think Tech will be over. They better be over. Baylor better be over. I
think if Baylor was to go 7.5 and 4.5, it'd be a very disappointing regular season. Yeah.
If they don't win at least 9 games, I think it's a very disappointing regular season with Sawyer Robertson as quarterback and all they have coming back. I'd say Iowa State's over, but then here's the thing is you could make a great case for more than half the list finishing over here.
But if you do that, somebody's got to pay for it.
Well, yeah, and that's the inexact science of it all. So
which could be somebody at the top that has to pay for it. So,
and I just don't know if that's Utah or that's Kansas or if that's somehow Iowa State or Baylor or that's the mystery that we'll find out only in season. But you can see where this is very tempting for fans is how Vegas puts these things out. It's right there on the spot where you're confident they're going to win this many, but oh man, I don't know about that one more, or you're really confident they're not going to lose this many, but man, I don't know. They make it tough on you to spend your money. And so, I think all these make it very tough because Tech, you should say, I think Tech fans will bully the over there because that means 9-3. Where are the 3 losses coming from?
Yeah.
But some of these others are, or at the bottom especially, I think are the more difficult ones actually.
Chris Cobb saying Houston will not win 6 games. He's a Houston fan. West Virginia will be in the mix for the Big 12 in the years to come. Not saying this year. Okay. Not to mention TCU and Texas Tech at home. West Virginia. Chris talking about those games at our Kansas State games at home against TCU and Texas Tech. Okay, let's go to the Big 10. Here we go. You got 3 teams at 10. Oh, wow.
What a surprise at number 1 again.
Ohio State, Buckeyes. Hey, if one of those wins is not against UT, they should fire Ryan Day. No. That could be the perfect time to go play them. Like last year when they played, not that they wouldn't have beaten Michigan no matter when, but it's a kind of not a bad time coming off the national championship and a quarterback change.
Apparently, playing at noon in Columbus, Ohio is really hard for Ohio State, apparently. Not anybody else, but Ohio State would rather it not be at noon. So who knows?
Yeah, they want night games.
Yeah,
they're tired of playing at noon. Oklahoma fans were the same way, and they bitched about it incessantly towards the end of their Big 12 tenure, not realizing or just not caring, I guess, that it was a compliment because you were the big draw in the 11 o'clock important TV window. So that's why you keep playing at noon. And obviously Fox has a lot invested in Ohio State, and they get big eyeballs, and so they're going to have a lot of Ohio State at noon. But, Ohio State fans, just like Oklahoma fans, here in recent years, they want more night games and less of that middle of the day, but that's the big TV draw. So that's the price that comes with it.
Well, yeah. Again, do you not like the money? If they don't like the money and they'd rather just go back to playing night games, they can negotiate in the next TV deal that they.
There's a lot of entitlement there by not wanting to play at noon when that's Fox, who's the one giving you money. That's their favorite spot.
Also, if I were Fox and they were complaining about it, I would call them up and be like, hey, you and like 3 other schools don't have to play on Thursday and Friday. So shut up.
No, I would put a word in between all that because you're right. They will never, I'm never going to say never in this day and age, but never be told they're going to play a game on a Friday night. So Indiana, the really cool story last year at 8.5 with Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska. Look at this. You can't even separate them all. All at 7.5. Minnesota, 11 teams in the Big Ten. Odds, if they win 6.5 or 6 games and more, would make a bowl game. And then there's this kind of not sure with Michigan State. Who's the guy from Michigan State? He was at what? Oregon State? John, what's the guy's football
John
coach?
Smith.
Yeah, John Smith. He's pretty good. See what he does with yet another offseason for the Spartans. What are you shaking your head for? I couldn't remember his last name. I got the name right. I said Oregon State.
You could have just guessed the first one. It's Smith.
Yeah.
Or
Jones.
But no, I think Michigan has a good shot to go over. I do. I'm a big Mikey Keene guy, and look, they're very big on Bryce Underwood. So I think their quarterback problem is maybe not solved in the way it was with J.J. McCarthy, but certainly vastly improved from a year ago.
Yeah, man, they were a mess.
Had they gotten a Mikey Keene a year ago, they would have been in contention for the Big Ten. And I'm not telling you that Mikey Keene is going to be the second pick in the draft or anything like that. I'm just saying that he can walk and chew gum at quarterback, which no one there could do last year.
Yeah.
And they didn't really do it. Like they kind of, wrote it out, but they still had a bunch of first-round talent on both sides of the ball and very draftable guys. And they were bad because they didn't have anybody who could play quarterback. So I think that'll be better because I think you can bus drive a team like Michigan to a ton of wins. Well, look, J.J. McCarthy got that knock when he was coming out. It's like, well, when you have that best offensive line in the world, you only have to throw the ball 16 times a game. In fact, in a couple games, they didn't throw the ball in the second half because they didn't have to. Like, that's not because J.J. McCarthy couldn't.
Yeah, but what the problem is, when he had to throw it, he was good.
He was good at it. So, if they can reestablish that same kind of a thing with Mikey Keene or a true freshman stud, then they'll be fine.
So a big midsection from 6.5 to 7.5, and then there's a couple of teams just above that, Michigan and Indiana at 8.5. Then you have the 6 teams, UCLA 5.5 with Tua, right? Nico as their quarterback with the Bruins. Fickle again, that would be 5.5. Maryland, Rutgers, 2 teams that people feel like are not bad, would be under the threshold to make a bowl. Now, we go to the SEC. 3 teams at 9.5 wins, Alabama, Georgia. You could have blindfolded, or if you didn't, those 3 teams were going to be 1, 2, and 3. We just didn't know the order. Alabama, maybe there's a few that would be off that, and possibly not in the top 3, but all at 9.5, which, oh, by the way, that will be interesting if we get to that, and there's a 12-team playoff with 1 year left, if they all are 9-3 or so. 9-3 or so, and nobody that's like a Texas or Georgia were last year, dominant from almost start to finish.
Look, I'm not going to be surprised to see going forward a lot of teams winning Power 4 conferences at 9-3 and being in the playoff, including the SEC. It's getting tougher. It's tough, and they want them to schedule bigger games, but we'll see. Look, the top 3 teams on that list have new quarterbacks. Essentially, Arch Manning has the most real experience of all of them, and it's still not that much. Before you get to Nussmeier in that 4th spot. Ole Miss, new quarterback. Tennessee, God in heaven knows they have a new quarterback. So
Auburn does. A&M's got returning with Reed.
Yeah. DJ Lagway's down there.
Sellers in South Carolina and Florida and Lagway both have really nice quarterbacks, but they're right there at 7.5.
I'm going to take the over on Florida, South Carolina, and Oklahoma. it may be just one, but I think that they'll all be better. And one of those, pains me to say, and I'm going to have to brush my teeth after it. Cause you ever feel like you like threw up in your mouth? Like that's how I feel right now. But I do think that with Lagway, they'll be a lot better. I think they're going to be all year long. If he stays healthy, he's really tough to stop.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's interesting post Nico, that they're still right there in the upper half. I mean, they're still obviously very talented, but thought maybe they'd dip a little bit lower, maybe a couple spots down. I was splitting hairs at that point. Yeah, I think Florida, South Carolina, I would hope Oklahoma. But it kind of tells you where they are, that 7 wins is the over-under they're now facing, when about 3 years ago it would have been, 10 wins would have been like the bare minimum, I would say. Every single year. And now it's 7. So huge year, again, for Brent Venables and company. But I'm not surprised to see Lebby and Mississippi State at the bottom. I don't think anybody expects them to be worth much at all. And I don't know when the expectation is supposed to kick in as far as results go for that program. But I think that's a pretty easy choice, along with Kentucky, who just seems like they've completely run out of flair and enthusiasm for Stoops. And, those are 2 pretty easy choices that normally would have been occupied by Vanderbilt. But how about Vanderbilt being at 5.5? Actually being above Arkansas and Kentucky both, and Mississippi State is interesting. But just 5.5 still. So Diego Pavia, go do your thing, man. And that Oklahoma 7, just interesting to see them at such a low number. But I do think South Carolina's, I think I'd go over with them. I'm not looking at schedules obviously right now, but Florida seems like a good candidate to do that as well. Auburn seems like a good candidate to maybe be under. I think the top's pretty easy. It's going to be some configuration of those 4 schools. I think pretty much every year. Some years, some team will jump up and enter that mix, but I think Alabama, Georgia, Texas, LSU, pretty much every year that's going to be 4 of your top 4 or 4 of your top 5.
All right, there we are. Some in the chat room said push on Oklahoma at 7.
Yeah.
Go Diego Pavia, go. Let the Lord of Chaos rule. Texas over. We got that 2 or 3 times in the chat. And Auburn at 8. Paxton says a little wild.
Now, Florida's schedule is the same as last year. They had a really tough schedule last year, and that's what we thought. But Lagway is just, he makes that team completely different. And if you look at the way that they've acquired transfer portal talent and high school talent, guys are coming to play with him. Like that to me is where you start taking steps forward, is when you have a player like that people want to come and play with, that have proven out. So I think that's one of the things that doesn't get talked about when it comes, especially the portal, is, now that if you know who your quarterback's going to be and people have seen like, oh, this guy can play, you get to the negotiation part a lot faster than, all right, well, I'm a receiver, a running back, or a left tackle. Who's the quarterback? Oh, we've got a couple guys we're looking at. Like, okay, well, who's the quarterback? It's DJ Lagway. All right, well, let's start talking turkey here and let's see if we can make this happen. So I think that, he is that good. South Carolina, same thing, that good. So I think you're going to see some jumps from them.
You look at Oklahoma's schedule, and I know they have Michigan at home, and we don't know how much Michigan bounces back. They were good last year, but they just couldn't do anything offensively, and neither could Oklahoma. But man, the back part of their schedule with UT, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU, they better win early on or they could be in for a very, very difficult slide. All right, now the ACC, including Notre Dame. Clemson, pretty good team. They played well in Austin, but not enough firepower. Klubnik, Dabo, 10, Notre Dame, 10, Miami, 9, and then you have Louisville and SMU at 8.5. So those are the 5 at the top. Haynes King, Georgia Tech, 7.5. And then you have that midsection of a big chunk from 6 to 7 wins with Virginia Tech, NC State, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Duke, North Carolina, and the Seminoles.
Yeah, we'll know about Clemson and LSU pretty early on. They're free the first weekend out of the box. But
you can lose that game and still win 10 games.
But their schedule, Clemson is, the first part of it's actually tough. You have LSU, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse Although, Syracuse will see, if their offense can kind of be what it was last year. Of course, Clemson, if that's like everybody's got a weird team in their conference, it always gives them a headache. Syracuse is that for Clemson. It has been, but they get, they've got a pretty manageable schedule between your tough teams. And a lot of that depends on, is Duke really that good this year? Like Duke, Florida State, Louisville, all right in a row. And SMU with the bye before that. That's a tough stretch, but they should be better than all of those teams, I would think. But we'll see.
Syracuse is just 5.5. I mean, I get there's been some change since last year, but with all the enthusiasm behind them, it just seems like just a disappointing low amount of games you're expected to win or maybe be not expected, but kind of in the ballpark of. But Fran Brown's building something good there. I think Stanford at 3, like they are, I mean, as irrelevant as it can possibly get at this point. Mm-hmm. I mean, really in football, I think they're a complete afterthought. I think their league forgets that they're there. And I have nothing against Stanford, but I just see them in the ACC poll at the very bottom with a 3 over/under win total. And I just wonder, like, what's the future of Stanford football? I know they've had some changeover as well. So they're aware of there's some issues, and Andrew Luck's trying to fix all that. But, man, they are at a low point right now. At the top, I think that makes a lot of sense, although Notre Dame, we're not in the ACC, but we're in all the ACC win totals. We're in all the ACC preseason polls. We're everything ACC, but we're not really in the ACC. It's just still what an arrangement that is.
They're in an open marriage.
Yeah, they very much are. They very much are in an open marriage.
That's what they are.
But Clemson and Notre Dame at the top, I think, makes a lot of sense. Miami's Miami, and who the hell knows with them. But SMU, I mean, Rhett Lashley's really built up something solid there. I do think Georgia Tech, not knowing their schedule off the top of my head, could be a good contender to maybe go over. I really like Haynes King, like most people, but I've liked him for going back to the Longview Lobos high school days. So I think that's a team that could finish higher than 7.5.
All right, so there we are with the 4 power or autonomy, whatever the hell they're called, schools, and then also with Notre Dame being attached to that. Nobody just realize this. Well, no, there's the 10.5 Ohio State, Oregon, and also Penn State. But nobody was like that. It'd be hard to go out on a limb and say you're going to win 11. And this, remember, is regular season. This does not include the conference championship game, and it does not include anything else after that, bowl game or playoff game. Otherwise, it can get crazy with how many can you play? 12, 13, up to 17? Mm-hmm. Now, if you had to play in the opening round.
I mean, that's why I picked Florida State to go over, because they're going to go 17-0.
And be left out. And they'll be left out.
I could probably go 16-0, because if you're undefeated, you'd probably not have to play that first round game. So 16-0.
Would you take 7 wins right now and be happy?
2 last year.
And I'm not. Wait a minute.
I'll take.
You're Mr. Standard.
I know, but I need to see some growth.
No,
I mean, I gotta
Your voice was trembling.
I'll take 7. I'll take 7 this year and see some growth. I won't. I mean, will I be happy about it? Of course not. I don't I'm not going to look back and go, the 7-5 Tommy Castellanos Seminoles, heartwarming. No, there are seasons that I remember, and they were all, contending seasons. And there's ones I'd rather forget. I'd rather forget the time that my friends and I drove up to Norman, Oklahoma, and FSU went up 7-0. And then that was the it for them having fun in Norman.
Yep.
So
that's back when Oklahoma could do that to you too.
Yeah. I mean, Christian Ponder and I talked about it at the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And I'm still kind of mad at him for it.
All right. Paul, you had mentioned that, you're going to do it Friday on the college football EA Sports? You're going to do a summary?
Yeah. I have the game, but we are leaving tonight. So I've only put it on for about 5 minutes earlier today just to kind of, see the differences. And I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's cool, but again, I haven't dipped my toe in the water all the way yet.
How long would it take if I bought the game to even know how to turn it on, to even start playing? How long? I don't know if I can.
A long time.
I don't know if I can. One other note about it, Baylor, you have these intros and coaches and all this. It's unbelievable what they've done. But Baylor had to respond to this because one of the traditions they have that's very unique is that the freshmen run the field. And this number of these students, it usually diminishes as the year goes on, but it's a massive. And Auburn Friday night will be a massive hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of freshmen. But EA Sports developmental team notified Baylor shortly before the launch that due to memory and character loading issues, the line would not render properly for this year's version. It will be back on for college football 27.
My favorite was the responses to this tweet.
I didn't even want to
a lot of Baylor fans being like, yeah, we get screwed again. And I'm like, well, I mean, yes.
Oh, yes, the world out to get them.
Yeah,
oh, yes.
The little digital nomad, gremlins. I don't know why I was calling them gnomes, but the little gremlins that couldn't make it work this year. Look,
why not? Why couldn't it? I saw other videos of players and teams running on the field.
They had it in the initial trailer. They had it.
Oh.
But when they load it for the game that everybody has to go and download and all these things with it, there are memory issues because it gets bigger and bigger, and all of your consoles have, depending on how much memory you bought and how big of it is, they do. So they have to have a version that can be everywhere where you don't have to kind of go through and reshuffle the deck every time you get a new game. So
all right, so they're not going to have it this year.
But here's the thing. This is the one that we know about because, we're in the world of it. But I'm sure there's probably 5, 6, 7 other things that didn't make it in that people thought they were because it's just not ready for this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to understand why they can't do this for all the memory reasons and whatever. I think if you're looking for the authentic experience and you're a Baylor fan, then you're not going to quite get that. I don't think it'll affect your playing whatsoever, and you probably would love to see it because you did it as a freshman once upon a time or whatever, but I don't think 99% of the people playing this game even know what the Baylor line – well, college football fans know probably in some cases what it is, but I can say – I feel very confident saying 100% of people that aren't Baylor fans will not care about this. So 99% of the people that buy this game will be just fine. But for those who want the authentic deal, then for those Baylor fans, that's I guess a bummer. But I don't think it prevents you from buying the game by any means. And I can totally understand that. I thought it was going to be logistically hard when I saw that it was going to be added in the game. I didn't know how they were going to pull that off. And it's not like you're using the same template for everybody for certain things. It's totally wholly unique to them, and how they do it's totally unique, and running from one side of the field to the other is totally unique. And I know there's unique things for others here, but look at all the people involved.
Yeah.
So you can see where that might be kind of messy. They're going to try it for next year, and maybe they'll be able to pull it off then, but I can see why, like I said, some people are a little bit bummed about that. Not the end of the world, though.
Auburn, we had Jason Caldwell on earlier. Paul's top 5 around the corner. Remember, tomorrow we will be broadcasting, recording, and also live tomorrow, both Tuesday and Wednesday from Big 12 Media Days in Frisco at the Star. You want to do the Auburn schedule? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Well, Craig, it's on the rundown, right?
No, it's not. It's not.
Well, what do you want to do?
I'll pull it up. I just don't have anything.
Sorry about here. Here you go. Well, this is kind of here you go. You can have mine. It's already printed out. All right. Garrett did not put it on the run. No, that's me. That's absolutely on me. One quick note before we get to the schedule, real quick. How about Dubansta from BYU leading the United States to the World Championship in that, FIBA under-19. VJ Edgecombe's debut in the Summer League at 28 points was fantastic. I watched some of the highlights. It was good to see those two young men, one that's about to play for BYU and one that played for Baylor, have a great weekend. Craig?
All right, so here's the Auburn schedule. I don't know how in-depth we'll get because I didn't know we were going to be doing, but that's all right. So I just want to have the checklist of who they don't play and everything. But things open up on Friday, August the 29th, and we're just taking a look at schedules and going through everybody's. And here we are. We're at the final conference that we'll be doing, and we've already done Alabama, so now it's on to Auburn. But as we discussed a little while earlier, road trip against Baylor will start the year on Friday, August the 29th for Hugh Freeze and his Tigers. Then the following week, Ball State, followed by South Alabama. And then Saturday, September 20th, the start of SEC play at Oklahoma, followed by at Texas A&M, a very jam-packed first month of the season for the Tigers road trips to Waco and to Norman and to College Station. So they'll be heading this direction quite a bit in those first 5 weeks. Ball State and South Alabama, grab a couple wins there. But outside of that, that's your 2 home games in your first 5, and the rest of these are road trips. So this could get dicey early on for Auburn, and then again, could, if things fall well, be a really great start to the season, but they're going to have to walk a couple landmines at least early on, it appears.
If they were 4-1, I wouldn't be all, that would be maybe a little bit more surprising to me, but I think that they, if they are certainly improved, but this could be 2-3 to start for Hugh Freeze. I mean, look, Baylor, Oklahoma, and A&M are all good teams, and they're all on the road, and, it could very well be that. And I think, like I said earlier, we'll know a lot more about Auburn and Baylor than maybe we would in most years open that up because of, where those teams are. But, yeah, I think this could be – I don't think it'll be 2-3, but it could very well be 2-3.
So then after they get their first break following that Texas A&M game, it is on to October the 11th, and they are at home for their first SEC contest, and it'll be the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yee-hee.
So UGA and Kirby Smart on October the 11th, then return home the following week. It'll be Missouri there at home, and then back on the road October the 25th, Arkansas up next, followed by a return home to face off with Kentucky on Saturday, November the 1st, and then a road trip to Vanderbilt on Saturday, November the 8th, before they get to their second and final bye week. So that first stretch, 3 road games and 5 contests, 2 Baylor, 2 Oklahoma, 2 Texas A&M, and that next phase, just a couple road trips and 3 home games. But you'll be going to Fayetteville and to Nashville, and you'll host Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky. So that's got a couple of – Georgia's the big name there. The rest of them are all winnable. They're all losable as well, but I think that's where you maybe make up some ground if you have a rough start.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about that. Oklahoma, A&M, Georgia, back to – and Missouri, didn't they win 10 games last year or whatever they did? Then you have –
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Then you have the foursome coming up. Oh, there's a bye week before Craig gets to one of those non-conference games they stick it in. But that's kind of a relief, and yet nothing might be because you don't know if Vanderbilt's going to be as good. Kentucky, like you said earlier today, is Stoops is starting to fade with momentum, and Arkansas with Sam Pittman, who knows?
Yeah, no, I think that, this could be get you back on track. But, if you can walk out of 3-2 and then maybe wind up 3-3 and then hit something on the back end, that could be something. I don't think anybody's expecting Auburn to contend for the SEC title, but they have to be better. They have to get to a semi-decent bowl game to really start creating some buzz. Otherwise, what's Hugh Freeze even doing?
So then after the second bye week, they will have 2 weeks to prepare for the that strenuous late season non-con gauntlet that the SEC puts itself through. So you're going to need 2 weeks to prepare for Mercer on November the 22nd.
Hey, that I'm telling you, that's asking a lot.
But then that'll be justified because, it's not just them. It's the team that comes after Alabama in the Iron Bowl on Saturday, November the 29th. So we'll have 2 weeks ahead of Mercer and then Bama. Both of those games are at home. 3 of their last 4 are at home. And you also have the bye week sandwiched in there between. So they won't leave for a road trip past November the 8th when they go to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. So that's, I think, something that could maybe play into their favor, even though they only play a couple games. But, they'll be able to be happy at home there for that 3-week stretch. And who knows what that leads into potentially. I think a lot will be determined by the early part of that schedule. That Baylor game, for example, right out of the gates on a Friday night, that is their only non-Saturday game. So, that's the big non-con for them. And then Ball State, South Alabama, Mercer are just kind of what they may be any given year. But not the easiest schedule in the world, not the craziest schedule. I'm trying to think, like, they don't play Texas, for example.
LSU, Florida.
They don't play LSU or Florida. This is typically where I'd have done that cross-check. They don't play Tennessee.
South Carolina.
So those are some of the teams they don't play. But there you go. There's the Auburn schedule with Hugh Freeze under a little bit of pressure.
Hey, Mercer was 11-3 last year.
Yeah, well.
They lost to Alabama, got blown out. but lost at the end to North Dakota State in the postseason. They were 11-3 last year. Now, again, those are they're playing against that FCS schedule, but that's not bad. Well, I mean, you're not careful.
If you want a good news, bad news situation on the schedule for Auburn, travel-wise, all their hard trips are in the first month. The longer ones. They go to, Texas twice and Oklahoma once, and then, Arkansas and Tennessee are not, those are little puddle jumps essentially. So they're fine there. But their big trips are all, and it's not like, look, if the furthest place you have to go is Norman or College Station, I think you're not really complaining that much if you're an Auburn fan.
Yep. All right. So there you go. There's the schedule, but it'd be interesting off the top if they can win off the top in Waco against Baylor. That sure will help. But then there's just landmines throughout. Although this seems like the backside gets a little bit easier, other than the ending. And hell, was it 2 years ago? When did they have Alabama dead to rights and Milroe threw the touchdown pass? When was that? That 2 years ago? It was, because Alabama, because of that, eventually ended up into the college football playoff. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina, his top 5, and Andrew Valet put up a couple of really good polls today. We'll look at the results and how you voted. That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs, whatever that may be. Looking to get your car worked on, looking to get into something new, something pre-owned. They can hook you up over at Richard Carr, and they are sitting there with a lot of price slashes right now. That includes saving $8,750 on 2025's GMC Sierra 1500 SLE and SLT models in stock. And qualified buyers, again, can save nearly $9,000 on the 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 SLE and SLT. You can also save $750 on a new 2025 Buick Envista, which was named a 2024 Car and Driver's Editor's Choice. They've got the new Cadillac Lyriq. It's not your typical EV. All-wheel drive, offers 500 horsepower, will go 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds with a single charge distance of over 300 miles. So there's a assortment of the vehicles that you can go and take advantage of right now when it comes to the red, white, and blue tag savings event. They've also got pre-owned vehicles. They also have their shop. If you need to get your tires fixed up or get an oil change, they can take care of that for you as well. Whatever you're looking to do, they are locally owned, locally run, and celebrating 26 years of business in Waco. So take advantage of the great deals right now, but also the great customer service over there with the people you can count on it. Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into the Top 5. We are going to be at Big 12 Media Days tomorrow. So, let's keep on finishing these Big 12 transfer newcomers. Flag and Anthem, flagandanthem.com, promo code 365sports. If you don't know, just go and find out. They've got great clothes at flagandanthem.com. We're talking Zona today. Let's go to Tucson. These two guys that I'm about to talk about both play the same position. That position is wide receiver. Why does Arizona need 2 wide receivers? Well, they lost a guy who's worth about 4 wide receivers in Tetairoa McMillan, who is the 8th pick in the draft on his way to the Carolina Panthers. Javin Watley is one of those receivers. The other one is Chris Hudson. Hudson comes in from Wazoo. These guys need to hit for them. They need to hit because Noah Fafita needs targets. He no longer has the big bailout guy in Tetairoa McMillan. And I'm not knocking Noah Fafita, but any quarterback in the world is better with Tetairoa McMillan. Do you have any idea how happy Bryce Young is that Tetairoa McMillan is in his life? Now, these guys have big shoes to fill. Can you beat Tetairoa McMillan? Probably not. But can you replace him in the aggregate? This is a lot like what Arizona State, their rival from across Arizona, there, obviously, is trying to do about Cam Skattebo. In fact, in my opinion, the 2 biggest offensive forces in the Big 12 last year, Tetairoa McMillan and Cam Skattebo, as far as overall talent and football, just dude-wise, are gone. Both their teams, both huge rivals, have to replace them, and they're going to have to replace it by using probably more than one guy. But if they can equal that production, that can be good. Number 3, linebacker Riley Wilson comes in from the Grizz, Montana. Now, he is a linebacker. Montana listed him as an edge rusher. He does not weigh 200 pounds. This guy is in the Datwin, Eddie Lackey, Zach Thomas, Sam Mills mode. But just go look up his highlights. This little engine that could is around the ball. He makes things happen. And, you know, sometimes you don't have to be Lawrence Taylor or Carl Banks or these big, massive linebackers. Sometimes you just have to know how to tackle, be completely unafraid, and be around the ball. That is Riley Wilson, and he will make some plays for the Wildcats this year. Number 2, running back Ismail Made comes in from Texas State. He's had some big games with the Bobcats over the years. They need a running game to support Noah Fafita badly. Ismail Made steps in with an ability to do that. This is a very key player for them. They did not have that running game last year. It was pretty much just throwing the ball. They need this guy to hit. And number 1, defensive end Malachi Bailey. I mean, just looking at the guy, you can see he looks good getting off the bus. This is someone who is probably going to open some stuff up for Riley Wilson as well, but gets after the quarterback. The most important thing going on the defensive side of the ball in football right now. Can you stop sacks? Can you get sacks is the biggest thing on defense that you have to do. They need to get more. Malachi Bailey, know his name, 44 at Arizona. He's going to do some things this year in Tucson. That's going to do it for us. We will see you in Frisco tomorrow. Smokey, tell us polls as we depart.
All right, here we are at Paul's Top 5 to close out the show, but we still have poll results from Andrew Valade from earlier today during the show. Which college quarterback has the most approved 2025 season? I thought this would be a very large, high number for Arch, 64%, then Drew Aller, Penn State, and then even with Lagway and Nussmeier from both Florida and LSU. That's a big number in the vote total, too, for 312 votes, with Arch winning handily, almost 3 times everybody else combined.
Who's been more hyped as a quarterback than him because of his last name?
Yep. Well,
and where he plays.
And saw a glimpse of him enough last year to get a pretty good idea. But no, that's not a surprise. I thought it would be at least 2/3 of the vote, and it is. The other poll, should EA Sports bring back college baseball? So we got football. There's going to be basketball. And now do you bring back baseball? Yes, 47%. Bring it back. Bring back Omaha. And then no stick to college football and college basketball. And then the others are at 9%. Add softball too, and maybe in the future 10%.
I would vote for number 2. Look, you want if you can make it profitable. I mean, I don't know if they can, but they can make it profitable. Sure, why not?
What, softball?
Yeah, I don't know if they can or not, but nobody's ever tried.
Is there any chance with the popularity of video games? Is there a chance you could oversaturate by doing too many at once over a couple of years?
Maybe, but I mean, like if you're into softball, it doesn't necessarily mean you're into football. But
right.
I think the canary in the coal mine for that will be if they do like a full out WNBA game. If they ever do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything's up for discussion now. What's going to make money is ultimately what they're going to do. So I don't know how much money there is in a softball game or a field hockey game or whatever. But clearly, basketball and football are going to be in the mix and have their games, and that's not a surprise. But yeah, beyond that, I think it's anyone's guess of how far they go with it. I just wonder, do they have the ability to do women's basketball in the basketball game, or is it just men's basketball?
Yeah.
Because then there's a lot of changes, like the ball's different, the 3-point line, or just like little logistical things that would be different. So I don't know how you program all that or how all that works, but I guess that would be my question. I don't know that I saw an answer to that when the basketball game news broke out, was whether or not the women will be involved. And if not, then I don't know. I don't know how much of a market there is, but it'd be cool if they could include that just to make everybody happy. But yeah, the college baseball game, I never even played the earlier one, I don't believe. I know people raved about it, but I don't think I ever even got around to playing that one. So I'd be fine either way.
It was fun.
The WNBA could be headed to a labor strike or something. They're as popular as they've ever been. Caitlin Clark, of course, is phenomenal, but so are many others. But there might be a little bit of something brewing, because this is their opportunity with the popularity that they have right now for them to maybe get a little bit more. All right, King Jiu-Jitsu, Andrew Valet, thank you very much. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. Emery Winter is working on 365 Sports tonight, 10:30 tonight and every weeknight on the CW. And Brandon Rowe is now a part of what we do. He will be up in Frisco. Brandon's a China Spring High School graduate, Baylor, and he will be up there tomorrow. We'll put him to work a little bit tomorrow as well. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, thank you, all of our great sponsors. Those of you who watch and digest us, please, if you haven't, hit the subscribe button and pass on the word. I'm David Smoak. Tomorrow from Frisco and Wednesday too, good night, 365 Sports.